Chapter 598. Although it was forbidden to kill members of the same race, there was one exception. That was the master and servant who presided over the sacred tree sacrifice. Jianghu was originally a sacrifice, so if he sacrificed himself in advance, no one would say anything. But the downside was that he might lack a sacrifice when presiding over the sacred tree sacrifice in the future. But Tao Shi couldn't care less about that now. His pride as a superior warrior wouldn't allow him to lower his head to a subordinate. If worst came to worst, he could use him as a sacrifice after defeating this guy. These thoughts flashed through Tao Shi's mind like lightning. Then he roared, "Fusion!" Jianghu flew towards him without any resistance. "Master Tao Shi, come, please enjoy my power." As he spoke, his body turned into a red chakra fruit. It was a mouth-watering sight. But just as Tao Shi was about to take the fruit, a golden light flashed and split it in two. Fortunately, Tao Shi reacted in time and slightly deviated the fruit's flight path. Sword light flashed and the chakra fruit was cut into two halves, one large and one small. The larger half was taken by Momoshi, and the smaller half was taken by Chenren. "Meat half." Norihito tossed the incomplete fruit in his hand and teased, "You only gave me a third, isn't that a bit rude?" Tao Shi gnashed his teeth, "Give it back." Norihito smiled faintly, "Do you think that's possible?" "Ah." Tao Shi was furious for a while, staring at Norihito as he swallowed the fruit like he was eating Norihito's flesh. Norihito looked at the fruit in his hand with a conflicted expression. Although it was a chakra fruit, when he thought of Jianghu's transformation he felt nauseous. But he didn't hesitate for too long. The hesitation between his brows was swept away, and his eyes became firm again. To become the sharpest weapon in Aizen's hands, I must have this awareness. As long as I can improve my strength, let alone fruit, I'll even eat human flesh. Eating the fruit wasn't as disgusting as he imagined. Instead, it was fragrant and melted in his mouth. An abundant power poured into his body, and even his soul seemed to transform and sublimate. "My current strength is at least twice as strong as before." Tongren was shocked. Just a third of the chakra fruit had this kind of effect. No wonder Momoshiki wanted to skin him alive. However, he soon thought of something. If I can have such an improvement after eating 1/3 of the fruit, how much stronger would that guy be? His body began to grow taller, and the curved horns on his head became vertical. His hair reached his waist and black lines appeared all over his body. The rinnegan on his palm turned golden, and even a slit opened between his eyebrows. Golden light was faintly discernible. But just as the rinnegan between his eyebrows was about to open, the transformation came to an abrupt end. Just like how a zebra mother ran out of ink during childbirth, the black lines on his upper body suddenly disappeared. The majestic and mysterious golden rinnegan between his eyebrows had also turned into a squinting eye. Seeing this, the people who were originally shocked by his powerful aura immediately laughed out loud. "Haha, is this idiot here to be funny? Those who know will understand that it's a squinting eye. Those who don't know will think it's an asshole eye." Momoshiki was so angry that his whole body trembled. First, he glanced at the group of people outside the field fiercely, and then looked at Tongren. "It's all your fault, you bastard." After that, Momoshiki teleported in front of Tongren and kicked him. So fast. Tongren's pupils contracted violently, and he quickly crossed his arms in front of his chest. Bang! Tongren felt as if he had been hit by an asteroid head-on, and he flew out heavily. After stopping, his hands almost lost feeling. Without waiting for him to recover, Momoshiki rushed over again. Tongren hurriedly circled the 9 truth-seeking balls in a circle, blocking in front of him like a shield. However, this shield only played a slight role in cushioning the impact, and the next moment, it shattered with a bang. Momoshiki's knee landed on Tongren's lower abdomen, making him fly out like a cannonball. It was not over yet. Momoshiki pulled him back with gravity and hit Tongren's chest heavily with his elbow. Off. Tongren suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood. "Didn't you have a good time before? Didn't you want to steal my chakra fruit? Go on, why don't you continue to be arrogant?" Momoshiki laughed wildly. Seeing the reversal of the offensive, the people who had mocked Momoshiki before could not laugh anymore, and their eyes were dignified. Damn it, this guy can actually transform. 3 years ago that guy ate himself and this guy ate his companions. Is their way of becoming strong so cruel? What noble alien. They are clearly a group of wild beasts that eat raw meat and drink blood. His strength. Garashi, who was sitting in the sky, was also secretly shocked. The previous Momoshiki was about 1:2 to 1. 4 euros, but after eating 2/3 of the jinsher, his strength had soared to 3.5 to 4.5 euros. It must be known that the strength of the jinsher was not as good as the euros. After eating less than 2/3 of the jinsher, his strength had increased by more than 2 euros. This was not conservation of energy, but it was very Otsutsuki. Garashi muttered to himself, "Fortunately, this kind of strength is still within the range that I can deal with." At the same time, Otsutsuki, who had turned into a speck of dust in the venue, stared at Tonari with scorching eyes. The birth of every Otsutsuki requires a huge amount of chakra. I didn't expect that a third Otsutsuki could be born on this planet. Moreover, whether it is dojutsu or body, his talent is perfect, and it is enough to be my vessel. Due to the existence of the wedge, under normal circumstances, it is difficult for an Otsutsuki to occupy the body of another Otsutsuki, but that Tensigen is obviously a newborn, and he has never returned to the main family, so he probably doesn't know how to use the power of the wedge. In this case, there is a high probability of success for possession. Even if I can't occupy his body, eating the results of his refinement is also a great supplement. However, that little brat seems to have the same plan as me. With his wisdom, he can naturally understand Mamoshiki's thoughts. I must destroy his actions. Just as Momoshiki was about to break the barrier forcibly and go in to grab Tensigen, the situation in the field seemed to have changed subtly. A layer of hazy moonlight flowed around Tonari's body like a sky curtain, blocking Momoshiki's attack. What is this? Momoshiki rubbed his fist. The feeling of hitting cotton made him very uncomfortable. This is the power of the branch family that you look down on. Tonari's right hand grabbed the space, and a huge moon-like eye loomed behind the space crack. Chapter 599. Looking from a distance, the eye behind the space crack gave people a feeling of brilliance. But in the eyes of Momoshiki, who was close at hand, it was not the case at all. The giant eye was composed of countless pupils, and those pupils were rotating like a living hive. Even if it was him, being stared at by these eyes made his hair stand on end. Don't think you can scare me with big eyes," Momoshiki roared loudly. But when these words came out of his mouth, it felt like he was trying to sound tough. Demons and monsters, turn into ashes under the scorching sun. Tonari tore the space crack and expanded it, and the huge Tensigen behind the space seemed to be squeezing in, releasing golden light. Momoshiki subconsciously shot out light waves and bombarded those golden lights. However, those golden lights seemed to have no substance, and they intertwined with the light waves and entered Momoshiki's body in astonishment. There was no penetration or explosion as he imagined. Momoshiki touched his body and laughed mockingly. "This is your attack? It doesn't hurt." With that said, Momoshiki suddenly felt a little itchy in his throat and couldn't help but cough. This cough directly coughed out a white and delicate long leg from his throat. It didn't appear out of thin air, but it grew on the inside of his throat. Momoshiki's eyes widened, and he screamed and broke the long leg. Before he could calm down, another head suddenly grew out of his neck. Momoshiki was going crazy. What is this? Heresy. It's simply an evil heresy. His second head was also shouting, "Who are you? Why are you growing on my body?" If Naruto's previous natural chakra only made him uncomfortable, then the blood energy contained in these golden lights made him mutate. Tonari laughed. "Haven't you heard of radiation mutation?" Of course, he was just fooling Momoshiki. In fact, he used blood energy to make Momoshiki's body lose control and induce genetic mutation. To be precise, it was to make some of Momoshiki's cells live and really have life. Radiation? Momoshiki froze for a moment. Of course, he knew this, but how could mutation be so fast? While talking, another tail grew out behind him, but it didn't appear in the tailbone, but in the middle of his buttocks. The little brother in front of him was the same as Datu. Suddenly there were a few more people fighting for positions. Taosher said coldly, "This kind of evil power is rare even in the universe. I think you're talking about yourself, right?" Everyone outside the ring nodded subconsciously. This ability was indeed too terrifying. Especially Momoshiki's pruning work, it made them feel fear from the bottom of their hearts. Shinran closed his eyes. "That's because you're too close to the sun. If you worship the sunlight from afar like flowers and plants, you will naturally receive the gift of light. But if you get close to blasphemy, your eyes will be burned by the sunlight." The corners of Taosher's eyes twitched. "The sun you're talking about is yourself?" Shinran shook his head slightly. "I'm just the moon that reflects the sunlight. If you're willing to listen to my teachings, you can have a seat among the stars." "Idiot." Madman. Tao Shi cursed as he finally removed all the extra limbs from his body. Since you don't cherish this last chance, don't blame me. Shinran waved his hand, and an overwhelming golden light shot towards Tao Shi. Sensing the terrifying aura contained in those light beams, Tao Shi regretted his previous playfulness. If he hadn't been thinking about how to vent his anger on Shinran, this battle would have been over long ago. However, it's not too late to remedy it now. Time freeze. After freezing the surrounding time and space, Tao Shi quickly flew to Shinran. However, before he could do anything, Shinran kicked him out with a whip kick. Tao Shi stopped flying backward and hovered in midair, looking at the opposite side in disbelief. How can you move? Shinran said calmly, I'm already connected with the Great Tensigen. If you want to stop me, stop the time of the Great Tensigen first. In other words, I have to close those space cracks? Tao Shi muttered to himself, but when he saw the Great Tensigen squeezing half of its pupil into this space, his scalp went numb. To close the space cracks, he first had to push this big eyeball back to the moon. Did he think he wasn't mutating fast enough? Shinran didn't give him time to think about countermeasures. He flew in front of Tao Shi and kicked him. Tao Shi instinctively returned with a whip kick. His current strength was above Shinran's, and he kicked Shinran away without any suspense. But before he could be happy, his right leg suddenly swelled and became bigger, as if he had a separate elephant leg. Tao Shi barely maintained his balance and his eyes widened. You have radiation on your body too? Shinran shrugged. You didn't ask me? Seeing Shinran flying towards him again, Tao Shi didn't dare to let him get close. While tearing off his right leg, he blocked him with long-range attacks. Get out. Don't come over. Looking at Tao Shi roaring hysterically in the ring, Naruto sighed. This guy is going to lose. Sasuke was a little relieved. I didn't expect that Otsutsuki Tonari to have such a perverted trick. Fortunately, I didn't force him into a desperate situation at that time. Just the thought of growing 3 penises like peaches was enough to make one feel horrified. Niji whispered, this ability seems to be a bit similar to the demon that Sensei mentioned before. Demon. Sasuke chewed and repeated it again. Naruto hurriedly asked, is it possible to be immune to mutation? It's possible. Niji nodded slightly. If you can perfectly control every cell in the body, theoretically, you can be immune to mutation. Perfectly control every cell in the body? Naruto's mouth twitched. How is this possible? Niji waved his fist. No, if it's Sensei, he can definitely do it. He actually combined the path of the indigenous with chakra and deduced it to this extent. Ichiki's eyes were shocked, but he quickly calmed down. I didn't expect that the superior warrior of the main house would lose to a wandering branch house. He didn't count himself in. He was attacked by surprise, which was completely different from Tao Shi, who was defeated openly. But this is good. If he wins, I don't have to expose myself in advance. In the ring, Tao Shi's body was completely out of control. Every part of his body had its own thoughts. Right hand, my index finger is bleeding. Left hand, right sister, come and let your brother care about you. Buttocks, from now on you can only enter and not leave. Horns, I want to separate, I can't live like this. Tao Shi finally broke down. I lost, I admit defeat, hurry up and get these things off me. Chapter 600. Seeing the previously arrogant Momoshiki turn into such a despairing and numb appearance, everyone felt a pang in their hearts. It was too abnormal. This ability was simply too overpowered. Unless only chakra was left, who wouldn't be afraid of their own bodies? For the strong, it wasn't impossible to survive in the form of chakra, but the problem was, how could a rootless duckweed without a body defeat Otsutsuki? This was simply an unsolvable problem. Everyone sighed with emotion, and in a flash, the ring instantly changed back to the appearance of the grand arena. Garashi clapped his hands and appeared on the rostrum. The world's first ninja tournament that has lasted for many days has come to an end. Thank you to all the ninjas for the wonderful battles you gave us in the tournament, and thank you to all the volunteers for your service. Finally, let us give a warm round of applause to His Excellency Tonari. Congratulations on winning the title of the world's first ninja tournament. Hearing Garashi's voice, no matter how unwilling everyone was, they could only applaud with all their might. Raiga sighed in the crowd. Not arrogant in victory, not discouraged in defeat. This kind of bearing is worthy of the god of ninja who changed an era with his own strength and made me run away 3 times. The corner of Kakuzu's mouth twitched. If he understood correctly, the point of Raiga's sentence shouldn't be that Shimizu Garashi scared him into running away 3 times, but that he successfully escaped from Shimizu Garashi 3 times, right? Without waiting for him to speak, Raiga patted him on the shoulder again. You're also very powerful. You've assassinated 2 generations of the god of ninja and still survived. Kakuzu nodded in agreement. Yes, he was also the man who tried to assassinate Shimizu Garashi and was finally defeated by him. Looking at the sympathetic eyes of the two, Karen sighed helplessly. Can you guys be more mature? Boom. The sudden loud noise caused everyone in the grand arena to jump in fright. What's going on? Is it a terrorist attack? How could someone dare to attack? No, it's really a terrorist attack. The dust that filled the arena was blown away by a gust of wind, and what appeared in front of everyone's eyes was the scene of Tonari being trampled under someone's foot. Seeing this scene, everyone was still in a daze. Otsutsuki Tonari, who had just won the title of #1 in the world, was defeated in the blink of an eye. Aside from the leader, there is actually such a powerful ninja in this world. Damn it, who exactly are you? Lung Rin felt hatred in his heart. He was indeed careless, being ambushed at his most relaxed moment. What was even more hateful was that this person's strength was clearly above his, yet he still launched a sneak attack. He was simply too shameless. This bastard's strength is above mine, yet he is still so cautious. If he wants to escape, he must use the power of the great Tensigen. My name is Otsutsuki Kajushi. I am the one who brought chakra to this world. Ishir saw Tongren's small movements and laughed softly. Save your strength. I won't be like that kid over there and give you a chance. After eating the chakra fruit, Mamoshiki's overall strength was above Mori's. The reason why he lost was entirely because he was too reckless and gave Mori the opportunity to summon the great Tensigen. With Mamoshiki's example, Ishir naturally wouldn't make the same mistake. After successfully attacking Mori, he immediately sealed Mori's power, determined not to give Mori a chance. Otsutsuki Kajushi. On the side, Mamoshiki's eyes regained some color and he looked at Ishir. This body is obviously the body of those humans. Sure enough, there was a problem and he had to use the backup of the wedge. However, this strength is really amazing. Even with a broken body, he still has this kind of power. As expected of the senpai who presided over the sacred tree festival. At this time, the rest of the people also reacted. Bastard, let go of brother Tonari. Karen clenched her fists and rushed forward. Kirito held her shoulder and shook his head slightly. Even Mori is not his opponent. What's the use of you going up? But, Kirito said in a deep voice, we have to believe in Tonari, believe in Aizen-sama. Karen's eyes flashed with starlight. Yes, Aizen-sama must be watching us. This bastard will soon be unlucky. Too despicable, sneak attack. Naruto rolled up his sleeves and was ready to fight with the enemy. Sasuke's eyes were strange. That Otsutsuki Tonari injured Hinata, and now he's being stepped on, shouldn't you be happy? Of course I'm happy, but that bastard made it clear that he wanted to ruin the event. I will never agree to such a thing. Naruto said with righteous indignation. Niji's eyes were fixed on the rostrum and he said without looking back, don't quarrel, sensei may make a move. Hearing Niji's words, both of them were refreshed. In the 8 years since the end of the war, sensei only made a move once, and it was the time when he suppressed Otsutsuki Urushi. But that time ended too quickly and it was hard to call it a battle. Now that sensei might make a move, of course they were looking forward to it. Sure enough, Garashi's voice came from above. Sneak attack again, you're still the same as before. But, have you thought about how to deal with the next trouble? You want to stop me? Ichiki looked up and said with a smile, I let you win 1 game back then and you think that's all my strength? Garashi shook his head gently. I don't think so, and your trouble doesn't come from me. What do you mean? Ichiki frowned, instinctively having an ominous premonition. What he means is... A gentle and elegant voice came from behind Ishir, causing his pupils to contract abruptly. The person under your feet is my adorable subordinate. Ishir subconsciously used his elbow to hit his back. After hitting his opponent's chest, he seized the opportunity to grab his neck. How did you manage to sneak up behind me without making a sound? You don't want to say? Ichiki's palm gradually tightened, but suddenly he felt it difficult to breathe. Something's wrong? No matter how slow Ichiki was, he found the problem at this moment. Release me. A storm was set off in his consciousness space, and the scene in front of him shattered like a mirror. At this time he found that his right hand was strangling his neck. Ichiki hurriedly let go of his right hand, looking in shock and anger. It's an illusion? Did you do it? He still felt it was inconceivable. With his spiritual strength, someone could make him fall into an illusion? Beside him, Tao Shi was also shocked. What was going on in this world? In the past, low-level soldiers like Jianghu were enough to suppress a planet, but in this world, strong people stronger than him were appearing one after another. It was ridiculous. On the opposite side, Tongren stood respectfully behind a person. That person smiled and asked, "What's wrong? Is the power of a god so insignificant?" Chapter 601. Seeing Aizen's appearance, no one could remain calm. The nightmare of being manipulated like a puppet 8 years ago reappeared in their minds. Hayashi's breathing was rapid. It's that guy, he really appeared. He's the one behind Hollow. Fugaku's forehead was sweating. Is this real or an illusion? Or perhaps both? Minato's eyes were dignified. He knew more than the others, so he was more afraid. He planned and plundered everything in the parallel world, and finally, his shadow once again shrouded this land. Seeing their elders' excitement and fear, Naruto and the other two were in a trance. They didn't experience the battle 8 years ago, so naturally they couldn't understand their fear. Is this man scary? Niji asked subconsciously. Sensei's presence can't eliminate their fear. Think about it. Of the 7 people sent by Hollow, all of them entered the top 32, 5 entered the top 16, 2 entered the top 8, and Tonari Otsutsuki was the champion. Sasuke said in a deep voice. As their leader, this man must be undeniably strong. He defeated Tonari's Otsutsuki, but Aizen-sama? Raiga's jaw dropped. They hadn't seen Aizen fight 8 years ago, so they didn't think it was shocking enough. Now that they saw it with their own eyes, they understood how powerful their leader was. Hashige narrowed his eyes. With Aizen-sama's strength, why was he willing to submit to Yahiko? Why didn't he use force to solve the 5 major countries? Did Aizen-sama just want to train an opponent? To train an opponent like Shimizu Garashi, who can threaten him and stimulate him to improve? Ichibi calmed down at this moment. Genjutsu was indeed powerful, but Genjutsu wasn't a powerful ability. He just needed to be a little vigilant. Ichibi calmed down. You haven't seen the vastness of the starry sky. Do you know what vastness and insignificance are? Aizen smiled and said. I've never been interested in knowing the vastness and insignificance in the eyes of an insect. Ichibi chuckled. I don't want to kill you. A clown like you, if you die, the world will lose its fun. Then let's try. I've never experienced being killed before. Aizen smiled slightly. Ichibi-sama, can you tell me how you felt when you were killed by your subordinates? With his wound being exposed right in front of him, it was hard for him to maintain his composure. He coldly said, since you want to experience it so much, then let me help you. Black coffin. He activated his ocular skill, and countless giant cubes fell from the sky and smashed towards Aizen. Boom. Aizen didn't dodge and was smashed into a pile of meat. With his previous experience, Ishur naturally didn't believe that the other party would die just like that. His expression was very ugly. Could it be that I'm under an illusion again? Release. Release. Release me. Boom. Just as First Shur was shouting release, he was suddenly sent flying by a void hammer. When he regained his balance, he saw that the pile of meat had reformed into Aizen's appearance. What? I wasn't hit by an illusion? Aizen sighed. You can't distinguish between reality and illusion so quickly? Ichibi wasn't angered. Instead, he calmly analyzed. It seems I guessed right. As long as I'm prepared, your illusion won't work. Ichibi didn't let down his guard. Although Aizen's illusion didn't work on him, he could deceive the world. This ability was rare even in the vast starry sky. I've been underestimated. Aizen sighed and waved his hand. Thousands of swords appeared in the sky. These flying swords were flowing with a golden luster, surrounding the first move. Turning illusion into reality? Interesting. Ichibi calmly evaluated. Then please try it. Aizen smiled and snapped his fingers. The next moment, thousands of swords flew out. Aizen held the most dazzling flying sword in his hand and flew forward to fight Ichibi. Ichibi, who had been casually dealing with the flying swords, felt the pressure increase when Aizen joined in. On the platform, Garashi quickly set up a barrier. Any of the scattered energy that hit the barrier would cause it to tremble slightly, causing everyone to tremble in fear. Ichibi's strength wasn't comparable to Momoshiki's. After familiarizing himself with the fighting style, he could deal with it more easily. At first, Ichibi panicked, but after the swords were exhausted, he was calm. It's just... Ichibi was about to mock Aizen when he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked down and saw a flying sword piercing his chest. Ichibi couldn't believe it. What? I clearly destroyed those flying swords. Aizen followed. Yes, why? Ichibi's mouth twitched. Did I fall into an illusion again? Aizen put his index finger on his lips. Don't ask me. Ask your heart. It wasn't easy for Ichibi to fall into an illusion when he was on guard. However, the prerequisite was that the other party had to be fully focused on guarding against it. He wasn't the kind of ninja who only knew genjutsu. It was impossible to be alert to his illusion in the middle of a fierce battle. Ichibi quickly understood this, but the problem was that he couldn't pay attention to genjutsu. If he was distracted, he would be hit by Aizen himself. If he was fully focused, he would be hit by Aizen's illusion. In this case, no matter what he did, it was wrong. Ichibi was thinking about countermeasures in his mind. That's it. Let's use external force. Judging from the reaction of those ninjas, they have a deep grudge against Aizen. As long as I break the barrier and drag the guy outside in, I should be able to escape today. The more Ichibi thought about it, the more he felt it was feasible. The three of them will fight against each other and restrain each other until they reach a perfect balance. On the platform, Garashi was sighing. 12 years ago, he had to rely on the fusion to defeat Aizen. But now, whether it was his clone or his main body, he had the strength to fight against Ichibi and even suppress him. Although Ichibi wasn't in his peak state, he didn't reach his limit either. I wonder how strong I will be after fusion compared to Kagaya in his peak state. At least for now, it seems that I'm still too weak. Garashi sighed. Suddenly, he noticed that Ichibi was quietly moving the battlefield to the edge of the arena. With his wisdom, he quickly understood Ichibi's plan. He couldn't help but laugh. This guy is really talented. Isn't it enough that he was beaten by Aizen? Does he want to invite us to fight him? Chapter 602. Tao Shi stood in the barrier, his eyes cold. Although the battle between Kazushi and Aizen was intense, the aftermath didn't affect him. What really made him angry was the situation in front of him. Even Kazushi, who hosted the Sacred Tree Festival once, is no match for the enemy? What's going on with this planet? Tao Shi roared in his mind. His impression of Otsutsuki's invincibility gradually faded away. He wanted to make a move, but Tonari was watching from the side. Considering that his body was still intact, he gave up on the idea of letting Tonari install a limb for free. I must inform the main family and have them send a senior who has hosted the Sacred Tree Festival twice to eliminate this threat. At this moment, the enchantment that enveloped the grand arena suddenly shattered. Tao Shi looked up and quickly understood Kazushi's plan. Driving the tiger to devour the wolf? Although he's the cause of all this, he still has a way to deal with it. While Tao Shi was thinking, he suddenly saw Kazushi being kicked away by Garashi and falling to the ground like a meteor. Several question marks appeared in his mind. Wasn't this development a bit strange? Wasn't he driving the tiger to devour the wolf? Another person who was just as confused as him was Wuxia. He flew out of the hole and glared at Shushi. Why me? Garashi said concisely. It's easier to beat you. Damn it, don't think I'm afraid of you. Kazushi's face was cold. No matter how poor he was still someone who once stood at the top of the starry sky. How could he tolerate these inferior creatures who only knew how to rely on hard work to humiliate him? Aizen shrugged. If you want to be angry or afraid, it doesn't matter. You're just a dispensable character. Garashi ignored his existence and looked at Aizen. You didn't let your subordinates participate just to support me, right? Of course not. Kazushi's veins bulged as he attacked both of them. Bastard, there should be a limit to looking down on others. Garashi didn't want to act too much, so he dealt with Kazushi while attacking Aizen. Soon the three of them were fighting fiercely. The process of the battle could be summarized as three people attacking the other two at the same time. Garashi and Aizen blocked the attacks, but Kazushi was constantly being hit. It wasn't just because he was weaker than the other two, but because the other two were cooperating to play him. In this case, it would be strange if he had a good time. In just a few seconds, more than a dozen wounds had appeared on Wuxia's body. If it wasn't for his strong vitality, he would have been beaten to death by now. Seeing this situation, everyone had a rough ranking of the three in their hearts. The leader and Kazushi's leader, Kazushi, of course Kazushi. Finally, Kazushi couldn't help but shouted, "Stop! The three of us can't do anything to each other. Let's call it a day." Although these words were a little exaggerated, it wasn't an exaggeration. The other two were indeed slightly stronger than him, but this gap was nothing. Unless they worked together to kill him, he would be able to escape. However, Garashi ignored him again and looked at Aizen. "Speak, what is your purpose?" Aizen opened his arms as if he was embracing the world. "I came here today to announce something to you. The Fifth Shinobi World War officially begins." The Grand Colosseum was quiet for a moment. Then it began to boil like boiling water. What did he say? The Fifth Shinobi World War? Is this a lie? Why is there a world war all of a sudden? After so many years of peace, the word war seemed to have disappeared from their daily lives, but when it was mentioned again, they couldn't help but feel their hearts throbbing. The Fifth Shinobi World War. Kazushi glanced back and forth between the two with great interest, ignoring the humiliation of being ignored by them. The Fifth Shinobi World War? Garashi pretended to frown. "Ordinary people can't intervene in our battle, so there's no need to involve them. If you want to fight for the ownership of this world, let's go outside the universe and fight." Aizen smiled. Losing a genin, losing a squad, losing a war, and losing a world. Victory is gained through the accumulation of advantages bit by bit. Don't you understand this principle? Hearing Aizen's words, everyone on the Alliance's side shouted with righteous indignation. "Rice leader, let us participate in the war. We have more people, even if it's 100 to 1, we will still win. Although we can't influence the Rice leader's battle, we can influence Naruto and the others, and let Naruto decide the final battle." Garashi didn't respond to them, but looked at Aizen with a dignified gaze. "What is your purpose of starting a war?" "Well, if you don't make it clear, it seems that you won't cooperate with me." Aizen stopped smiling and said in a deep voice, "I want to use this war to give birth to Gaia's consciousness on the planet under our feet, and then..." Before Garashi could speak, Ichiki shouted, "Impossible, how can a planet's consciousness be artificially cultivated?" Aizen asked with a smile, "So it does exist?" Ichiki didn't mind being tricked and said in a deep voice, "In the vast starry sky, any miracle can happen, and a planet's life is the greatest miracle." Aizen looked at Garashi. "Presumably you also know how powerful Otsutsuki is. If we want to resist the threat from the starry sky or even counterattack and trample them under our feet, our strength alone is far from enough." Ichiki and Momoshiki's mouths twitched slightly, discussing how to counterattack Otsutsuki in front of them. Isn't he looking down on them too much? The people below were shocked. They now know how powerful Otsutsuki is, but no matter how crazy they are, they can only think about how to resist the threat, or how to wander in the starry sky with the planet under their feet. But this man, as soon as he opened his mouth, he wanted to trample Otsutsuki under his feet. What kind of courage is this? The members of Hollow were also shocked. They only wanted to repay Aizen's kindness, but now they suddenly have a sense of honor and mission. Karen's eyes shone like stars. "I knew that Aizen's ambition is not as simple as ruling the world." Kisame sighed. "Although Aizen started the war for the world, most people won't be grateful to him. Of course Aizen won't care. He and Shimizu Garashi are polar opposites. They both carry the world on their shoulders, but Shimizu Garashi has too many scruples, while Aizen does as he pleases. If they can unite, they may be able to counterattack Otsutsuki." Chapter 603. "What does this have to do with the war you mentioned?" he asked calmly. "What does this have to do with the war you mentioned?" "Don't worry, let me explain." Aizen said with a smile. "With your attainments in sage mode, it shouldn't be difficult for you to understand the voice of all things, right? Plants, mountains, rivers, and even dust have their own voice." Seeing the confused look on everyone's face, Aizen smiled and said, "You might not understand, but I'll put it another way. Everything has radiation. They can emit electromagnetic waves to the outside world. This radiation is their sound. It's the sound they use to record their own information." This time, everyone was even more confused. Aizen sighed and pointed to Momoshiki, who was watching the show in the distance. Take his previous experience as an example. Every cell has its own life, but what really determines the body's actions is the brain's thoughts, and the parts of the brain that produce consciousness under the mutation. What about this planet? Everything has a voice, just like the cells in the human body. They are the cornerstone of the planet's consciousness, but what really determines the consciousness of the planet is the human race. In the crowd, Orochimaru said, "I seem to understand, the consciousness of all things constitutes the consciousness of the planet, but only we can determine the existence of the planet's consciousness. Because we can't produce the same voice, the planet's consciousness can't be born?" Aizen nodded slightly. "Almost." Ichiki rubbed his chin. according to what you said, when these voices come together, the planet's consciousness can be born. Do you intend to use war to kill the world until only you are left? Momoshiki clapped his hands and sneered, "It's a pity that such an idea didn't come to our Otsutsuki clan." Aizen shook his head gently, "As long as one voice overwhelms the others, it's enough." I couldn't help but ask, is there no war in the shinobi world that could achieve this condition? It should be a matter of scale and degree. Anoki analyzed, no war can spread across the entire world and no war can affect everyone's heart. When the world's energy is invested in a war, everyone's mind will be worried at the last moment. Orochimaru analyzed. In other words, at the peak of the war, at the moment when fate is at its strongest, the spark of life is ignited. However, I think that the conditions for the birth of a planet's consciousness should not be limited to this, right? War is only the catalyst to achieve this condition, the spark that ignites the fuse. Aizen smiled. The state of the planet itself is also very important. Just like a fetus in a mother's womb, if the mother doesn't have enough nutrition, it won't be able to give birth to life. The state of the planet itself? I was confused and could not help but grumble. Stop beating around the bush and speak clearly. What is the most suitable breeding ground for a planet's consciousness? Aizen snapped his fingers. Immortals, gods, and demons, these three are the mainstream of this world. Most of the people were confused. They already knew that chakra was a foreign system, but when it came to local forces, not many of them knew about it. Aizen continued. Therefore, the final battle should be carried out on the battlefield where these three forces converge. Converge these three forces? Sasuke analyzed. Immortals, you should be eyeing the holy space of the three summoning clans, right? Aizen didn't deny it. As for the demons, one is the great Tensigen on the moon, and the other is your dream world. Naruto's eyes widened. How can the dream world be related to the demons? Powerful great demons are almost immortal. In ancient times they used sealing methods, but the results were not ideal. However, the aura of the great demon I sensed in the dream world was a different method. It was captured and used as the source of power for the dream world. Aizen smiled. Otherwise, where do you think the power you usually consume in the dream world comes from? Everyone was flabbergasted when they heard this. An undying great fiendish demon sounded very powerful. But what happened? It was directly captured by the leader. If Aizen didn't mention it, they wouldn't even know about it. Niji was speechless. No wonder Sensei knows so much about the demons. It turns out that he captured a greater demon as a slave. Raiga was horrified. Too cruel. It's simply an inhumane black workshop. Aizen continued. As for the gods, we'll use the Pure Land instead. This way the sage, demons, and god systems will all be gathered together. These three systems are the hotbeds for the birth of consciousness. It's the environment of the origin of life. Next, the most important thing is nutrition. This nutrition refers to chakra. The huge amount of chakra that can give birth to a planet's consciousness can only be provided by the goddess of chakra, the source of chakra. Finally, in the ultimate realm of the Trinity, the great light will be born. In fact, most of the above were his irresponsible conjectures. He didn't care if the planet's consciousness would be born because of this. But the others didn't know. They only felt that the leader of Hollow's words were unfathomable and terrifying. Big move, really big move. The three holy lands, the two poles of earth and moon, and the pure land. Such a large structure was just a hotbed. As the source of chakra, the goddess who created the world, Kagaya, was seen as a nutrient. This kind of magnanimity shocked them deeply. If it was in the ignorant era of the past, they might have bowed their heads in worship. After the shock, Inoki asked again. It's indeed a wild imagination. But all of this is just your conjecture. What if the planet's consciousness isn't born in the end? Aizen looked at Garashi. Do you have the same idea as him? Garashi was silent for a moment. If the plan succeeds, the winner can swallow the planet's consciousness and truly control the world's power. If the plan fails, I think your plan is to let the loser become the planet's consciousness and let the winner swallow it, right? To be precise, most of what he said before was nonsense. Only this sentence was his true intention. He did this mainly to raise funds so that everyone would put their power into the gamble. Not only the immortals, demons, and gods, but also the Ichiban, Peach, Rikudo, Hamura, and even Kagaya. In the end, the money of the people would be returned, and he would take all the money of the tycoons. After all, the banker, the dealer, and the gambling table were all his people. How could a few Otsutsuki compete with him? Chapter 604. Aizen nodded. That's more or less it, but the planet's consciousness is vast and powerful. If we're not careful, we can create a god to suppress us. Therefore, we need to make a rule in the ultimate battlefield. The winner can take away the power of the loser. This is the only way to ensure that the final winner can suppress the planet's consciousness and become a true god. Hearing this, everyone somewhat understood his plan. Everything is on the scales of fate. The loser eats the dust and the winner takes all. It's cruel, but it's also realistic. Since they want to defeat Otsutsuki, they must be prepared to give up everything. If they can't give up anything, they can't change anything. While everyone's mind was in turmoil, Ichiki suddenly clapped his hands and laughed. If I wasn't here, you might have succeeded. Aizen smiled. Oh? Then what can your presence change? Ichiki shrugged. Don't look at me like this. No matter what, I'm still a superior warrior of Jupiter. If I send a message back to my family that there are extremely dangerous rioters on this planet, what do you think will happen? Everyone's heart sank. From the Yura style to the Momo style, and then to the Otsutsuki style, the enemies that appeared were stronger than the previous one. Moreover, from the information conveyed by their words, there were many people on that planet who were stronger than them. If he sent a message back to the clan, they might not be able to deal with the next enemy. However, Aizen just smiled. Go ahead. Ichiki frowned. Do you think I'm joking? Aizen smiled. I know you have some ideas about this planet, but don't worry, just do as you wish. Ichiki's expression became dignified. Could it be that you, without waiting for him to finish, Taoshi cursed with an ugly expression. Bastard, the signal is blocked. Aizen smiled. That's bad, the signal in this remote area isn't good. Ichiki's expression changed. How do you know the clan's contact information? Did Kagaya tell you? But he quickly denied this conjecture. No, although that woman is stronger than the average superior warrior, this is top secret information that only superior warriors can know. She's just a junior warrior. Aizen naturally wouldn't say that he knew this secret from Ichiki in a parallel world. You don't need to know. By the way, I've sealed the door. No one is allowed to leave this world until the war is over. Momoshiki's expression changed again. He pushed open the door and walked in. A moment later, he came out with a dark expression. He set up a barrier on the moon. Even if we use a space jump, we can't cross that distance. Although the barrier can't be broken. Sure naturally understood what he meant. It would take some time to break the enchantment. If they insisted on breaking the enchantment, they might be sealed before the enchantment was broken. Seeing the two's defeat, they couldn't help sighing with emotion. Of course, the Otsutsuki, Ichiki. Ichiki rubbed his fists and smiled maliciously. Before we fight to the death, shouldn't we clear the battlefield first? Everyone also reacted and looked at Ichiki and Momoshiki with a strange light in their eyes. Fight against outsiders. Fight against outsiders first. This is an internal matter of the shinobi world. Let's get rid of the irrelevant people first. Ichiki's face was cold. Even when he was attacked by Kagaya, he wasn't as angry as he was now. He was threatened by a group of low-level creatures that he could kill with just a breath. What's more hateful is that he can't ignore this threat. They are the weakest of the three, and it's already difficult for them to fight alone. If the first and second join forces, it won't take long for them to be sealed. Ichiki suppressed his anger. You sealed the space in advance. It seems that you have been plotting against us for a long time, but don't be happy too early. Just when he was about to fight to the death, Aizen suddenly laughed. Don't worry, in fact, there is not only a dead end in front of you, there is also a bright future, and even a way to win everything, and that is to participate in our war. Hearing his words, many people were confused. He forced Otsutsuki into a dead end. Wasn't it to eliminate the threat and solve the unexpected factor? Some people's eyes flashed. They had already guessed his thoughts. Ichiki didn't feel happy because of this. He just lowered his eyelids. You said so much just to let us put our strength on the gambling table so that you can win more? Aizen didn't deny it. After all, we are going to counterattack Otsutsuki. The higher the better. You said you were going to counterattack Otsutsuki? Do you expect me to help you? Ichiki's words were full of sarcasm. If you are so loyal, you would have sent a message to the clan for so many years. Aizen laughed. Admit it, you are also coveting the power of this special planet. Ichiki's eyes moved. He was no longer a novice who had just arrived on this planet. He naturally knew how powerful this planet's potential was. Not only did it create a monster like Otsutsuki Kagaya, but even the separated part of her power was no weaker than a high-level warrior. It can be said that this life planet is at least equal to 30 ordinary life planets. No wonder this senior didn't send a message to the clan for so many years. He was worried that someone would steal the chakra fruit he wanted? Thinking of this, Ichiki's heart suddenly became restless. Otsutsuki Kagaya is a low-level warrior, but he ate the chakra fruit of this planet and became so strong. If I was in his place. Ichiki pretended not to see Ichiki's strange look and decisively admitted, I do have an idea, but why would I do something that is hopeless? Sandwiched between you, there is no way I can win. Aizen shook his index finger. Isn't it better to leave later than to be eliminated now? Besides, your shell organization should have a lot of power. It's not impossible to become the final winner. Shell organization. Many of the higher-ups of the alliance suddenly understood. He really was the leader of another mysterious organization. However, they thought that the threat of the shell organization was higher than Hollow, but now it seems that it was the opposite. Ichiki wanted to say something, but Ichiki was already impatient. Okay, I agree. Ichiki narrowed his eyes and re-examined this junior. He didn't speak. Chapter 605. War, and it's the Shinobi World War. When all of this became a foregone conclusion, most of the people in the alliance were in a heavy mood. Only those who had experienced the war could understand the cruel reality hidden under the surface of passion and passion. Compared with the worries of the older generation, most of the younger generation are eager to try. They have always lacked a stage to show themselves. They have powerful strength, but they can only move freely in the virtual world. It's inevitable that they will be unwilling to be lonely. Lee was so excited that he hit the air in front of him. I can feel it, the youth that Kai-sensei said is burning. Shikamaru was sleepy. What? How can I sleep in the future? At this moment, a loud noise suddenly came from the direction of the alliance. Shikamaru woke up in fright. What happened? What happened? As he was talking, he suddenly felt his shoulders sink. Surprisingly, it was Shaoli who jumped onto his shoulder and looked into the distance. Not good, the prison has been attacked. What? The prison was attacked? Hearing this news, Shikamaru didn't bother to pull Lee down. Unlike the narrow prisons in the Ninja Village era, in order to implement the purpose of reform through labor, prisons in the new era are often built on large projects, so they cover a large area and are not in the center of the alliance. Although they are far away from the alliance because there is a barrier set by the leader, they don't worry about the prisoners losing control. They didn't expect that someone would dare to attack the prison today. Dare to attack the prison? Is it some mysterious organization? Just when Shikamaru was worried, he suddenly noticed someone's dangerous gaze. He saw Choji rubbing his palms as if he wanted to jump on his shoulder like Lee. Shikamaru was scared and quickly hid in the chaotic crowd. After the movement spread, the arena, which had been calm, was once again in chaos. Many jonin spontaneously ran in the direction of the prison, but before they ran a few steps, they saw a huge castle flying in the sky in the distance. The shape is beautiful, grand, like the residence of a god. What is that? It's a sky city flying in the sky. Even if they have entered the new era, they couldn't help but be shocked to see this product across the era. Of course, these shocked people didn't include the two from Otsutsuki. Tao Shi's disdainful gaze swept over the crowd. If these natives are so surprised to see a city in the sky, wouldn't they be so shocked if they saw a bastion? Shir finally regained some sense of superiority. No matter how strong they are, they're just country bumpkins who haven't even left the planet. What the F***ck is this? In his field of vision, thousands of mechas flew out from the edge of the castle and fired light beams at the barrier. In a few breaths, the light shield that enveloped the prison was pierced through. Naturally, they weren't the only ones who were shocked. Everyone in the alliance was shocked speechless. After a long while, Anoki said in a hoarse voice, "That's dust release and 1,000 people are using it at the same time." Although there were rumors in the Biology Research Institute that they had developed artificial bloodline limits and bloodline elimination were completely different. Most bloodline limits could be defended against, but how could dust escape be defended against? It could only dodge. However, the 1,000 dust escape's sweeping attacks made it impossible for anyone to dodge. What was even more frightening was that those who used dust escape did not seem to be humans but mecha puppets. This also meant that after these mechas were damaged, they could be quickly replaced. Who does this castle belong to? I hope it's not Hollow. As soon as this thought appeared in their minds, they heard Aizen's laughter from the sky. Everyone, are you curious about my palace? Sure enough, it's him. Everyone's hearts sank. Even those who thought that the alliance had a great advantage were worried at this moment. They had originally thought that although the Hollow was powerful, they were few in number and most likely would be weak in the future. But the sudden appearance of a castle in the sky, 1,000 mechas and 500,000 white Zetsu soldiers in the prison made them realize that this war would not be as easy as they thought. AI asked. Having dust release and being able to use it are two different things. Sachikage, dust release should consume a lot of chakra, right? Anoki nodded slightly. Yes, dust release consumes a lot more chakra than ordinary ninjutsu. Even I can only use it 20 times in a row. Raza pondered. Puppets usually use chakra from puppeteers, but no puppeteer can provide chakra to use dust release 1,000 times at the same time. Most likely they use Grayer or as a power source for these puppets. Empress Shomiai analyzed. Don't forget, the Grayer or vein is in their hands. Ichikushi and Mamashiki were also frowning. Although they can absorb chakra, if the attack is too dense, it is inevitable that there will be some gaps. And for an attack like dust release, once there is a gap, it will be a big problem. Ichiki recalled the time when he fought Aizen. His sword was ignored by Aizen's genjutsu. If that sword was replaced with dust release. In this silent atmosphere, Garashi looked at Aizen and shook his head gently. Isn't it too much to attack the prison? Aizen smiled slightly. Last time I suffered a big loss at your hands. This time you should let me get back at you. Hearing the conversation between the two, everyone's morale was low because of Aizen's display of strength. So that guy suffered a big loss at the hands of their leader and came to take revenge? Garashi sighed softly. Did he really suffer a loss? Aizen didn't comment. But aren't you going to stop them? Garashi was silent for a moment. Let them serve for 8 years, that should be enough to offset their sins. However, they are too different from ordinary humans. There is no place for them to survive in this world. It might be a good choice to hand them over to you. Hearing Garashi's words, everyone suddenly understood. No wonder Skynet didn't respond. It turned out that the leader acquiesced to their plan. They didn't object to this result. In fact, they felt a lot more relaxed. After the end of the Fourth Shinobi World War, they were told that some of the white Zetsu were the product of chakra absorbed by the Tree World realm. At that time they rejoiced. Fortunately, there was a hero in this era who saved the world. They also sympathized with the white Zetsu who may have been their ancestors. However, sympathy was one thing. If they were asked to live with those strange creatures, they would never be willing to do so. Therefore, when they heard that Aizen was going to take away the white Zetsu, their first reaction was relief. It was as if the burden on their shoulders was taken away. Ichiki and Mamashiki were a little anxious. Now that the Hollow has an army, what about them? The Hollow has hundreds of people, they can't just let the two of them do everything. Where are their confidants? Chapter 606. After the two organizations left, everyone was still immersed in the shock of today's events. First, it was the world's strongest, but in the blink of an eye, the world's strongest was trampled under someone's feet, then the appearance of the two mysterious organizations, and the declaration of the Fifth Shinobi World War. This series of unforeseen events was really too much to handle. People with a slightly weaker ability to accept things are starting to doubt the reality. At this time, A suddenly said, "Leader, don't talk about your resignation." Raza instantly became alert. Something is wrong, shouldn't this be his line? But before he could speak, Minato nodded and said, "I agree with Raikage's opinion." Garashi hesitated for a moment. "Why do you have such an idea?" I said in a deep voice. "Whether it's me, Minato, or anyone else, we don't have the power to unite people's hearts. Only with you in this position can you make everyone believe in you and make everyone feel at ease." Empress Shomiai nodded. "If we talk to strong enemies like Aizen and Otsutsuki Kazushi, it will only make us a laughingstock and let them laugh at us." Everyone nodded in agreement. Although Aizen and Kazushi appeared to be very elegant, this is respect for the strong people of the same level. If they were to talk to them, they might not even be able to enter the door. The other party could easily make them look bad. Garashi opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Raikage continued. "I know what you want to say, you want to resign after the war, right? But have you ever thought that after the war we will enter the interstellar era? According to them, the laws of the interstellar era are crueler than those on the planet. Without a strong leader, without power, even if we enter the interstellar era, we will only be treated as aborigines and be slaughtered." Anoki also said, "I understand your thoughts, you want to let go and let everyone grow, but this world needs God, it is too fragile to withstand a storm." Raza said loudly, "Just like you did before, continue to protect this world. Listening to them, the surrounding people also became restless. Rai-sama, please don't refuse anymore. Only if you continue to be the leader, this ship will not lose its way. Not only because of what Garashi had done for this world, but also because of what they had experienced today. In front of such starry sky forces, only the leader could speak to them as equals. Without a leader, this world was just an ordinary indigenous planet. Garashi took a deep breath under everyone's expectant and fanatical gazes. Since everyone has said so much, I will not be pretentious. I will sit in this position until I lead everyone to the peak of starry sky. At this moment, his soul began to boil like boiling water. He was receiving everyone's blessings. Under the catalysis of external pressure, those thoughts became purer and more fanatical. If it weren't for the half of the Hangyu that had purified his faith, he would have suspected that he would have been blessed and pregnant, like Huey. The crowd didn't know what he was going through, so they just cheered wildly. Seeing such a fanatical scene, A sighed in his heart. Fortunately, he didn't persist in that unrealistic fantasy. Otherwise, he would have been asking for humiliation. In fact, this is also good. I should have changed to a more realistic goal long ago. After untying the knot in his heart, he suddenly felt that even his bones were relaxed. He couldn't help but learn from those young people and shouted in a rough voice. Rai-sama, I want to give birth to a monkey for you. The four Kages next to him trembled in fear and looked at him in disbelief. They didn't expect him to be such a rakage. Killer Bee was even more horrified. He knew that his brother had always wanted to be the leader. Today he suddenly changed his mind. Could it be? Thinking that his brother was still single at this age, Killer Bee couldn't help but worry. I have to help my brother find a female talent. Wait, I seem to be single too. As if witnessing a milestone, everyone walked out of the arena with their heads held high. While walking, they talked about what they saw today. In the crowd, Naruto asked longingly, will we enter the Star Age in the future? It's still early. Sasuke shook his head slightly. Let's solve the threat of those two organizations first. Niji said with a dignified face. They're not easy to deal with. Hollow has Otsutsuki Tonari, Shell has Otsutsuki Mamashiki, and we have no one in the second tier who can fight against them. They couldn't even defeat Mamashiki and Tonari before they transformed, let alone the two who ate the chakra fruit. Hearing him say this, Naruto and Sasuke inexplicably missed Big Naruto and Big Sasuke's cheats. If they had Rikudo Senin's cheats, they could help Sensei. Sai, did the Rikudo Senin of this time and space oversleep? Naruto sighed. Sasuke also sighed faintly. Is it because we're too strong that he doesn't want to lend us his power? Niji was confused. What Rikudo Senin? What did you two do behind my back? At this moment, the three received a message at the same time. Sensei asked us to go to his office. Niji looked up and asked, you also received the message, right? Naruto and Sasuke nodded together. Sensei said that he has something good for us. The smile on Niji's face froze and he carefully read the message twice. In the end, he was convinced that Sensei didn't mention anything good in the message. Niji was depressed. It must be because I lost the first round and embarrassed Sensei. At this moment in Garashi's office, he returned the truth-seeking ball carried by his main body to Rikudo, who had just woken up and said apologetically, I'm sorry. The truth-seeking ball I brought to the parallel world was eaten by the enemy. Eaten? Rikudo's eyes widened slightly, but he quickly calmed down. To be able to eat my truth-seeking ball, the enemy must not be underestimated. Was it Mother or Ichibi? It was Otsutsuki Ichibi. Then, Garashi told him about his experience in the parallel world. At first, Rikudo was calm, but the more he listened, the more shocked he became. In the end, he couldn't help but ask, Otsutsuki Ichibi died? And it's the kind of death where even the soul origin is sacrificed. That was a high-level warrior of Otsutsuki, the pinnacle existence in the boundless starry sky. Even Rikudo had to be wary of him. Yet he died just like that and he was eaten clean. Garashi took out half of the Hogyoku. His soul is inside. Rikudo looked at the half of the Hogyoku in amazement, and then sighed. The younger generation is really formidable. Aizen's heart is too big, so big that even I am afraid of him. Fortunately, you turn the tide. Chapter 607. Hearing this, Garashi smiled bitterly. He is indeed ambitious. Six Paths was shocked. After he returned to this world, did he do something amazing? Garashi sighed. Nothing big. He is just preparing to gather all the power to give birth to the consciousness of the planet. Six Paths was confused. What is the consciousness of the planet? Then Shueisha recounted what had happened that day. After listening, Six Paths had an expression of, I don't understand, but I am shocked. He stroked his beard and said, since Ichibi did not deny it, it seems that the consciousness of the planet does exist. If his guess is correct, he may be able to obtain the power to defeat Otsutsuki. In his opinion, if he could integrate the power of the planet, his power would be undeniably strong. It would be easy for Otsutsuki to destroy the creatures on the surface of the planet. Even creating or destroying a planet like the moon would not be too difficult for him. But if he wanted to destroy the planet under his feet with brute force, even a high-level warrior like Ichibi would not be able to do it. It was obvious that the overall power of the planet was far above Otsutsuki. Garashi nodded slightly. I think so too. There is no such thing as guarding against a thief for 1,000 days. Instead of being afraid all the time, it is better to fight hard and gain the power to fight back against Otsutsuki. Fight back against Otsutsuki. Six Paths' face showed a look of longing and shock. Even he had never thought of fighting back against Otsutsuki. At this moment, when he heard Garashi and Aizen express their ambition to defeat Otsutsuki, he couldn't help but sigh that he was indeed old. This era belongs to them after all. I just need to give them a push from behind. Six Paths sighed and laughed. How can I not participate in such a big battle? Shushi was overjoyed. That's great. With the addition of you, the immortal of the Six Paths, our chances of winning are much higher. However, Six Paths shook his head slightly. I am just a follower. Since I have joined the alliance, I should call you leader. How can that be? Without waiting for Garashi to finish, Rikudo changed the topic. You said that Aizen occupied the moon, and he had a subordinate who had the Tensigen and could summon the Grand Tensigen, right? As expected, Garashi's attention was diverted. Yes, his name is Tonari Otsutsuki. Six Paths sighed. Hamura's consciousness is lodged in the Grand Reincarnated Eye. Sometimes he is awake, sometimes he is confused. Since they can control the Grand Reincarnated Eye, it means that Hamura is controlled by them. In other words, my participation can only offset the enemy's hidden strength. Garashi was shocked. I didn't expect Aizen to be hiding his strength. The Six Dao nodded with emotion. I thought that the first form and the home family would be our biggest enemies. I didn't expect that when I woke up, they would become the weakest party. The two of them actually lost because of their prejudice. They confused our world with other planets. It's inevitable that they misjudged. Garashi analyzed. However, it's time for them to throw away their arrogant thoughts. As long as they correct their mentality with Otsutsuki's background, their threat can't be underestimated. Rikudo agreed. Yes, at this moment there was a knock on the door. Come in. The three of them pushed the door open and saw their sensei talking to an old man floating in the air. Naruto and Sasuke's eyes lit up. Here comes the cheat. Six Paths, who was about to introduce himself, froze. Why does the reincarnation of Indra Chakra in this era feel strange? Is there something wrong with his eyes? These three are my disciples, Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, and Hyuga Neji. Garashi introduced them to each other. As for this one, he is the first ancestor of Shinobi, the god of Shinobi, Six Paths Sennin. Six Paths Sennin. The three of them were very shocked. Six Paths kindly twirled his beard. Ah, that's all in the past. Now, I'm just a subordinate of your sensei. Subordinate? Naruto and the other two were really shocked this time. The first ancestor of all shinobi in myths and legends, Six Paths Sennin actually claimed to be their sensei's subordinate. Although they guessed that their sensei's strength might be stronger than Six Paths Sennin, the various identities of Six Paths Sennin were too significant. More than 10 years ago, when Pain of the Akatsuki first appeared, just because he had the same eyes as Six Paths Sennin, he made the shinobi world feel like they were facing a great enemy. It can be seen how great the influence of Six Paths Sennin on the shinobi world was. The three of them were shocked and couldn't help but feel proud. Even the legendary Six Paths Sennin was their sensei's subordinate. Garashi waved his hand again and again. Six Paths Sennin is too modest. You should be. Without waiting for him to finish, Six Paths interrupted him. This old man is not modest. I did make a small contribution to the world, but in terms of leadership, my ability is not good. I can't mediate family affairs and even let family affairs run through the Millennium War. This is my fault? Naruto grabbed his hair. Grandpa, can you speak like a normal person? Can you speak like us? Six Paths' mouth twitched slightly. The mood he had brewed was interrupted. He couldn't help but sigh. I can't even deal with family affairs properly, let alone govern the country. This world does need a god, but that god is neither me nor mother nor Otsutsuki but your sensei. The three of them nodded deeply. They had heard about the root of the dispute between Senju and Uchiha. This six-path Senin's ability to govern the family was really not good. They still needed their sensei to save the world. Garashi shook his head slightly and didn't say anything. He immediately looked at the three and said, I called you here today because I have a task for you. The three of them suddenly became excited and didn't ask what the task was. We will do it, Garashi said seriously. Previously in the Grand Arena, Aizen showed his desire for the three great Sage Holy Lands. I suspect that he will make a move on the Sage Holy Lands in the near future. You three inform the three great Sage Holy Lands and let them be vigilant. If necessary, abandon the Holy Lands and move to the real world. The three of them nodded in unison, indicating that they understood. Sage Holy Lands. Six Paths' eyes showed a nostalgic look. Todamaru is now old. Todamaru? Naruto wondered. Is there a toad with this name in Mount Myaboku? Six Paths laughed. It's the great sage toad you speak of. With that said, Six Paths seem to have made a big decision. You may encounter enemies in the Holy Lands this time. Let me give you a gift. Chapter 608. Rikudo shook his head slightly. In fact, this gift isn't very suitable. But for the current situation, there's no better choice. Naruto asked, What gift? Rikudo smiled. Haste. Naruto's tone was low. Don't tell me it's to teach us how to farm? Rikudo shook his head helplessly. I'm the one who gave you the power to forcibly raise your strength in a short period of time. If the situation wasn't tense, I wouldn't want to use this method. If you don't want to, yes, of course. Naruto hurriedly said. By the way, after we're forcibly raised, can we fight Tonari and Mamashiki? Rikudo was hesitant. I haven't seen them fight. According to Garashi, they ate a chakra fruit. Their strength is most likely above my power. But it's not absolute. You have the chakra of my two sons. After stimulating your potential, you may be able to fight against them. That's enough. As long as we can fight back. Naruto was full of confidence. He had seen Mamashiki's fighting skills in the convention. Was a mess. If it weren't for the other side's strength, he wouldn't have lost. Although Tonari was much better than Mamashiki, his combat experience was still slightly lacking compared to them. Sasuke and Neji were also excited. Great. Next time we meet them, we'll return the humiliation we suffered in the convention. Seeing the three cheering, Rikudo awkwardly interrupted them. Ahem, Naruto and Sasuke are okay, but Neji, you're not the reincarnation of my two sons' chakra. You may not be able to bear my power. The smile on Neji's face suddenly froze, but he suddenly realized that Sensei had predicted this scene long ago. Rikudo also felt a little embarrassed and hurriedly remedied. I have a palm leaf fan that can release the 5 attributes of fire, water, thunder, wind, and earth at once. Under normal circumstances, it requires a lot of chakra, but after my modification, it can be activated with a small amount of chakra. I'll give it to you as a gift. With that, he took out a red and white fan from the void and handed it to Neji. Is this a ninja tool? And it's an extremely rare ninja tool. Tian will like it, right? Thinking of his wife who had a habit of collecting ninja tools, Neji muttered in his heart and asked embarrassedly, Six Paths, Sama, can I give this away? Six Paths understood that the banana fan wouldn't increase Ningji's strength by much, so he didn't reject it. Since I'm giving it to you, it's yours. Make your own decision. Thank you, Lord Samsara. Ningji was happy and worried at the same time. Would Tian be so happy that she would want to reward him tonight? Garashi said in a timely manner, How about this? I'll teach you the god summoning technique later. You can borrow my power when you're in danger. Naruto and Sasuke understood that this should be their sensei's way of compensating Neji. After all, both of them were cheaters. Ningji was touched. His teacher didn't blame him at all. At this time, Sasuke hesitantly raised his hand. Sensei, I may need to find someone to cooperate with me. His dojutsu needed someone to cooperate with him to maximize its effect. The last battle had already proven that all snakes were unreliable. If he wanted to defeat the enemy, he needed a reliable helper. Garashi nodded slightly. I happen to have the same idea. You can stimulate your potential at Six Paths Sama's place. I'll equip each of you with an assistant. Assistant? The three of them looked forward to it. Who would it be? After the three left, two more people came to Garashi's office. Leader. Looking at the two who were so respectful, Garashi pretended to be angry. Are you estranged from me? Rin smiled playfully. Etiquette can't be abolished. Don't worry about it in private. Garashi smiled helplessly. Kakashi, Rin, sit down. Rin sat down gracefully, but Kakashi was very reserved, only daring to sit in the front half of the sofa. Don't be shy. Just sit down. Kakashi smiled awkwardly. It's okay. I'm fine sitting like this. He didn't have Naruto's vitality. Naruto recovered in a day or two, but his back still hurt. Shushi quickly understood. He laughed and said, "Why didn't you tell me that you haven't recovered yet? Let me give you a hand." Of course, no need. A burst of green light sprinkled on Kakashi's body, making him almost moan out of comfort. At the same time, the two of them swallowed back their words. Garashi looked back and forth between the two with a strange look. It seems that I did something unnecessary? Do you need me to reverse your state? Kakashi laughed awkwardly. Forget it. Although he felt a little regretful, he didn't want to experience the pain of broken chrysanthemum again. Garashi felt a little funny. I didn't expect that in the end, it was Naruto who helped them. But, with their current state, isn't it too cruel to take them to visit someone? It's killing them. In this awkward atmosphere, Rin took the initiative to change the topic and asked, "Senpai, why did you call us here today?" Garashi abandoned the distracting thoughts and said seriously, "Haven't you been looking for a chance to reduce Bordered Soil's sentence?" Rin and Kakashi didn't care about the awkwardness at this moment and nodded repeatedly. "Do you have a way?" Garashi clenched his hands and supported his chin. "Now that we've entered the stage of a full-scale war, any combat power is an extremely precious resource. I intend to let him redeem himself. I'll take you to visit him." Great. The two cheered. Then let's go now. Garashi snapped his fingers, and the three of them were instantly transferred from the office to the prison. Amazing. Although Rin knew how powerful Senpai was, she couldn't help but sigh. Looking at the empty prison, Kakashi asked, "Senpai, Aizen sent people to attack the prison. Didn't he take them away?" Garashi shook his head. "It's a tacit understanding between me and him. He only took the white Zetsu." Oh. The three of them walked around the prison, and soon they saw three people working hard to move bricks in the labor camp. Bordered Soil, Nagato, and Yahiko. Seeing the Akatsuki's triumvirate fall to the state of the prison, the three of them felt a little emotional. Bordered Soil. Hearing the familiar voice, the brick in Bordered Soil's hand fell to the ground. "Is that you, Rin?" Seeing Bordered Soil's eyes staring at Rin as if attracted by a magnet, Kakashi coughed once, twice, thrice, until he coughed 6 or 7 times in a row. Bordered Soil looked at him impatiently. "Which idiot?" "Ah, Kakashi-senpai, you're here too." Chapter 609. Kakashi said angrily, "I'm really grateful that you can still see us." Bordered Soil laughed. "Ha, how could I not see you?" On the side, Nagato and Yahiko came over with a complicated expression. "You should be here today because of the prison riot, right? Can you tell us what happened?" Bordered Soil nodded again and looked at Rin with concern. "Was the village attacked? Rin, are you injured?" Rin shook her head slightly. "Senpai is here, everyone is safe." Kakashi added, "Although Akatsuki attacked the prison, they didn't dare to go too far." "Akatsuki?" The three were confused, and when they were about to continue asking, Garashi interrupted. "The shinobi world is currently facing the threat of the 5th Shinobi World War. It's a waste to keep powerful people like you in prison. If you are willing, I can temporarily release you on the condition of commuting your sentence." Bordered Soil didn't need to say much, and he agreed without thinking. Nagato and Yahiko looked at each other. "We also agree." They were grateful to Garashi for letting go of Conan, so they didn't refuse. However, Garashi said calmly, "Don't agree too early. There is one thing I must tell you. One of the enemies you will have to deal with after you go out is your old friend." Nagato asked in surprise, "Did someone rebuild the Akatsuki? Is it Conan or Uncle Aizen?" "It's Aizen. However, instead of rebuilding, it's better to say it's incorporation." Kakashi explained with a dignified expression. "The Akatsuki's power only occupies a small part of Akatsuki." Yahiko was surprised. "Onigaki and Sasori are already very powerful. Aren't they ranked in Akatsuki?" "That's not necessary. I'll tell you this." Kakashi tried to organize his words. The Alliance recently held a World's Ninja Tournament. All the powerful ninjas except Senpai participated, but the title of World's #1 was taken away by a teenager. That teenager is Aizen's subordinate. Rin added, the strength of the top 4 is not weaker than Madara and Naruto. Hearing them say this, the 3 of them were greatly shocked. If there was a gap in the Alliance's strength and someone took the crown, they could understand. However, the strength of the top 4 was not weaker than First Hokage and Madara. For an outsider to take away the title of #1 in the world, it could only mean that this person was terrifyingly strong. But such a powerhouse was only a subordinate of Aizen. It was terrifying. Nagato sighed with emotion. As expected of uncle, if he was the leader of Akatsuki, perhaps things wouldn't be like this now. Bordered Soil took a deep breath. I knew that Aizen wasn't simple, but I didn't expect him to be so abnormal. Yahiko frowned. He naturally didn't want to confront Uncle Aizen, so he asked again, you just said that Akatsuki is only one of the parties, are there other enemies? Garashi nodded slightly. There is a force called the Shell Organization. The 3 of them were stunned again. How come there is another Shell Organization? It's reasonable to say that the Alliance should be the dominant force in the outside world. In this case, it should be difficult for such an organization to grow. How come the mysterious organization is more powerful than them? Moreover, since the Alliance is treating them seriously, it means that the strength of this Shell Organization is above that of the Akatsuki. Bordered Soil considered his words and asked, what is this Shell Organization? Kakashi explained. According to Garashi, you should have heard of the legend of Six Paths Sannin saving the world, right? This matter is true. Six Paths Sannin saved the world from his mother's hands. Six Paths Sannin's mother came from an extremely terrifying force in the depths of the starry sky, the Otsutsuki family. This family has very few people, but each member has the strength to suppress a planet. Six Paths Sannin's mother is a low-level warrior of the Otsutsuki family, and the leader of the Shell Organization is a high-level warrior of the Otsutsuki family who brought her to our planet 1,000 years ago. This series of information made the 3 of them feel like their brains were about to crash. What Otsutsuki? What Shell Organization? Why does it sound so fake? Nagato asked in a dry voice, is what you said true? Of course it's true. Kakashi nodded. You can ask anyone after you go out and you will know. Bordered Soil took a deep breath. I understand the biggest threat the Alliance is facing now is the Shell Organization, right? Nagato asked, do they want to destroy the world again? Yahiko's eyes were solemn. You want us to contact Uncle Aizen after we go out and fight against the Shell Organization together? However, after the 3 of them were shocked, they found Kakashi and Lin looking at them with a smile. Bordered Soil didn't understand. Why are you looking at me like that? Kakashi laughed. I'm just lamenting that you have been out of touch with the world for too long. The Shell Organization is indeed powerful, but among the 3 forces of the Alliance, Shell Organization and Shell Organization, they are actually the weakest. Lin nodded. If it weren't for the Shell Organization's leader wanting to keep them alive, they would have been sealed by now. The 3 of them were shocked again. What kind of development is this? Bordered Soil couldn't understand. Didn't you say that Otsutsuki is a powerful force from the depths of the starry sky, and that he can suppress a planet by himself? Yes. Lin nodded, but Senpai and Aizen can easily do this kind of thing. The 3 of them looked at Garashi in disbelief, unable to connect this handsome and gentle man in front of them with the god who suppressed a planet. Yahiko was in a trance. Could it be that hundreds of years have passed in the outside world? Of course not, it's just that 8 years have passed. Kakashi said, his confidence waning. Senpai has the power to manipulate time, perhaps he has secretly accelerated it? Seeing Kakashi looking at him, Garashi naturally understood what he was thinking, shook his head and said, using time acceleration to fight is fine, but using it for cultivation? You think too highly of me. Time acceleration? Yahiko was dumbfounded. Not only time acceleration but also time rewind. Lin recalled with lingering fear, 3 years ago, a guy named Otsutsuki attacked the Alliance and killed many of us. In the end, it was Senpai who used time rewind to resurrect everyone. Hearing this, the 3 of them were completely stunned. Suppressing a planet, manipulating time, this is the domain of the gods, right? Just as the 3 of them were in a daze, an old man suddenly appeared in front of them with a dignified expression. Leader, the moon has suddenly disappeared, and the outside world is now in chaos. Garashi pondered for a moment. The moon has disappeared? Immortal, please calm everyone down first, I will come later. Okay. After Rikudo left, the 5 of them looked over in shock. Yahiko stammered. What did you call him? And what did he call you? Chapter 610. Garashi said without hesitation. Six Paths Sannin, what's the problem? Nagato asked with a little dizziness. Then why did he call you leader? Garashi said calmly. Sannin also joined the alliance. Is it strange for him to call me leader? Of course it's strange. Everyone shouted in their hearts. That's Six Paths Sannin, the legendary hero who saved the world and created ninja sect. It's already very shocking for such a character to come from legend to reality, not to mention that he also regarded himself as Garashi's subordinate. This kind of impact is simply explosive. Even Kakashi asked dizzily, Six Paths Sannin joined the alliance? When did this happen? Garashi laughed. Just before I came to find you. Rin was the first to react and said excitedly, with Six Paths Sannin joining, our chances of winning are even greater. Nagato gently stroked the Rinnegan that once shocked the ninja world with the name of Six Paths Sannin, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. You are already so strong, even Six Paths Sannin is your subordinate, what else do you need our help with? Don't belittle yourself. Although you can't be regarded as the strongest in the ninja world, you are not bad. Garashi comforted. Besides, what I need is your experience. Experience? Yahiko was a little surprised, but he quickly reacted. The young people in the alliance? But you actually want us dangerous people to guide the young ninja. Aren't you afraid that we will instill dangerous ideas in them? Garashi laughed. What they lack is experience, but they don't lack faith. Bordered Soil nodded with deep emotion. Those who follow Senpai will not lack faith. Bordered Soil's heart was filled with emotion. If it weren't for the accident midway, he might have become Senpai's most loyal fan. Of course, except for the conflict with Rin. Yahiko nodded. Well, we agree. When will we meet the newcomer you said? Seeing Yahiko agreed so readily, Garashi was a little embarrassed. This mission, I intend to let Nagato and Bordered Soil guide. As for Yahiko, well, you can do some ordinary work. Ordinary work? Yahiko seemed to be humiliated. You know, I am the leader of the Akatsuki. But your strength? Yahiko stared at him. Didn't you say that strength is not important? What's important is our experience. Garashi said strength is not important, but the premise is you have the ability to protect yourself. Yahiko's facial muscles twitched wildly. Don't I even have the ability to protect myself? Garashi sighed. Indeed. To be fair, Yahiko's strength is definitely not bad, but this mission is a cheat. Bordered Soil has space ability, Nagato has Rinnegan, not to mention the others, whether it is the strengthened Naruto, Sasuke or Momoshiki Tonari, they are not something ordinary Kage level can deal with. The era of ordinary Kage level is the ceiling of the ninja world, it has long passed. Yahiko looked like he was hit, and waved his hand dispiritedly. I understand ordinary people like me can only do ordinary work. Garashi unlocked the seal on the three. Let's go, I still have things to deal with in the outside world. After saying that, Shushi teleported everyone out. At this moment the outside world was still in panic. Although the moon is not as important as the sun, the sudden disappearance caused a huge chain reaction. What's going on? Where is the moon? Is it the end of the world? Hearing the voice in their ears, Bordered Soil and the other two felt like they were in another world. The six people appeared in front of the central building, and naturally they were quickly noticed by others. A group of high-level officials who were in charge of the pacification work gathered around and reported. Leader, the astronomy department lost all observation of the moon. Leader, there is someone who claims to be Rikudo Sannin. Leader, the dream world is shaking chaotically, suspected of being attacked by unknown forces. Shushi raised his hands and gestured for everyone to calm down. Calm down, everyone. It'll be over soon. Hearing Garashi say this, everyone seemed to have found their backbone and suddenly relaxed. At this time they noticed a few more people behind Garashi. It's them? Although everyone was surprised, no one asked questions. Since the leader did this, he must have his reasons. Therefore they quickly focused their attention on Garashi. Seeing this, Yahiko, who was thinking of a way to greet them, was surprised again. They don't have any doubts about the three of us being released from prison. Is Garashi's prestige so high in their hearts? At this time, a voice came from the side. Leader, do you need me to create a new moon? Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Who was this unreliable? Did you create the moon? However, Garashi asked, creating a new moon, will it be a big burden on you, Immortal? Immortal? Everyone looked at the person and their mouths were wide open. Wasn't this the old man who called himself Rikudo Sennin? Was he really Rikudo Sennin? Rikudo Sennin thought seriously for a moment. Although the moon is just a subsidiary product that I used to seal my mother, I am not the same as before. Creating a new moon will take a lot of effort. Garashi shook his head slightly. Then there is no need to go through so much trouble. I will just go to space and move a smaller satellite. After that, Garashi teleported into space. The three who had just been released from prison were dumbfounded. Was this how the big bosses communicated? If he didn't create a new moon, he would move it. This was too cruel. No wonder he didn't even put a seal on us. Yahiko smiled bitterly. At first, he thought that after Shushi had unsealed them, he hadn't even left behind a small seal to prevent them from rioting. He had forgotten to do so in a hurry. But now it seemed that it was completely unnecessary. At this time, Minato looked at the sky with some confusion. Didn't Momoshiki say that Aizen placed a barrier in the sky to prevent people from flying too far away? Rikudo Sennin shook his head slightly. I don't feel any barrier. AI's expression changed. Did something happen to Hollow? Or did Hollow and Shell cooperate? Minato pondered. Momoshiki said that the core of Aizen's barrier was the moon. Now that the moon has disappeared, it makes sense that the barrier is ineffective. I just don't know if Otsutsuki's 2 will take advantage of this opportunity to escape. A trace of worry appeared on Rikudo's face. He wasn't worried about whether Otsutsuki's group would escape or not. The universe was vast and boundless. Even Otsutsuki's travel time was measured in years. By the time Otsutsuki returned with reinforcements, the dust would have settled. What he was worried about was his mother, who was sealed on the moon. Chapter 6:11. Just as everyone was talking, a bright moon reappeared in the sky. Compared with appeasement and explanation, the moon's reappearance was undoubtedly more calming. When the moon reappeared, the panic in people's hearts quickly dissipated. A group of high-level officials had to sigh. Although this method was simple and crude, it was indeed effective. Unfortunately, they couldn't learn it. The next moment, Garashi reappeared in front of everyone. Minato hurriedly reported the discussion just now. Garashi murmured, the enchantment in the sky did fail with the disappearance of the moon. However, we don't know whether it's the Hollow or the Hollow Shell organization. But it doesn't matter, as long as you do your job well, it's okay. Hearing Garashi's words, everyone was no longer worried. In addition to Garashi's own prestige, the news of Rikudo Sennin joining was also an important reason. How could the combination of the leader and Rikudo lose? After the crowd dispersed, Garashi summoned Nagato, Naruto, and Rikudo Sennin to the room. The two sides looked at each other and perceived the chakra in their bodies. Nagato was surprised. The amount of chakra they have is almost no less than mine, especially the yellow-haired boy. He's even stronger than me. Naruto asked curiously. Sensei, are they the assistants you chose for us? Yahiko stood up expressionlessly. I'm just an ordinary person doing ordinary work. These two are your assistants. Sasuke asked. What about the other one? Niji wailed in his heart. Was he forgotten again? Don't worry, there's another one here. Shushi tapped lightly in the void and space rippled. A ghost with explosive hair appeared in front of everyone. Didn't I say don't bother me? Madara shouted irritably, and his eyes suddenly focused on Rikudo. You are... Garashi took the initiative to introduce. This is Rikudo Sennin, the source of Senju and Uchiha's bloodline. Rikudo Sennin. Madara's pupils shrank violently for a moment, but he quickly recovered his calmness. Just so. Tell me, what do you want from me? Garashi said, I want you to be my disciple's training guide. Madara's face was not good. You want me to be a nanny for these kids? As a nanny? You're not wrong. Garashi chuckled. However, your main task is to guide them. When it comes to fighting, you may not be a match for my disciples. Banban's face was frosty. The three of them were the last 3 people in the boring exam 3 years ago, right? Although you have some strength, how can you compare to me? Nagato sighed. We are all people who have been eliminated by the times. It's good enough that they still remember us. What's the era? Madara said disdainfully. Decades after the death of Hashirama and I, it's still our era. Bordered Soil still hated the fact that Madara deceived him. He sneered with the knowledge he just learned. Do you know what a shell organization of Hollow is? Do you know what Otsutsuki is? Madara frowned. Do I need to know this? Then let me tell you. Bordered Soil proudly showed off the knowledge that just shocked him. Soon Madara joined the ranks of the stunned. What? I may not even be in the top 10 of the ninja world? What? Chakra was brought by Otsutsuki? What? Otsutsuki is the god of creation, but ordinary Otsutsuki can only be a subordinate of the two major forces. There are two Otsutsuki. Shell is the weakest organization? If it weren't for the sage of the six paths himself, Madara would have thought that these people united to deceive him. In just 8 years, how did the world become so strange? 8 years ago, he was the one who forced the ninja world to unite against his final boss. However, if he were to do this again 8 years later, there would be no need for Qingshui Shushi to make a move. Any force would be able to beat him to the ground. The psychological gap is too big. Fortunately, after all, Madara is not an ordinary person. He quickly calmed down and asked, "Is it possible to see those people in this mission?" Garashi nodded slightly. "Yes." "Well, I'll take this mission." Madara's eyes were fierce. "I'd like to see how powerful the strong people of this era are," Garashi said. "Sasuke and Madara are in one group, Naruto and Nagato are in the other group, and Neji Bordered Soil is in the other group. Do you have any objections?" "No." "Well, get ready to go after stimulating your potential." At the same time, in the City of the Sky, Aizen looked at the two people in front of him with a smile. "You dare to appear in front of me after stealing the moon? Do you think I dare not kill you?" Tonari and the rest of the 10 blades stood aside with cold faces, ready to fight at any time. Ichibi calmly put his finger on his right eye. "I shrank the moon and sucked it into this eye." Everyone was shocked. They knew that Ichibi had the ability to shrink and enlarge, but they didn't expect that his ability was so powerful that he could put the moon in his eye. "If I'm scared by you and accidentally crush the moon and release Otsutsuki Kagaya, it won't be good for anyone," Aizen said. "I didn't expect that the powerful Otsutsuki would fall to the point of using a low-level warrior to threaten others," Ichibi said indifferently. "Although it's embarrassing, I don't deny the fact that she's stronger than me now." Aizen tapped his fingertips on the table. "Tell me, what do you want?" Momoshiki rushed to answer. "We want an army." "An army?" Aizen raised his eyebrows. "You want me to give you a part of the White Zetsu army?" "Of course we won't rob you," Ichibi answered with a smile. "We want the souls of the underworld." "The underworld?" Aizen laughed. "So, you want the Six Paths Sennin?" Ichibi said calmly. "The underworld is one of the 3 ultimate lands you mentioned, and it can provide us with an army. Of course it's the best choice." Aizen closed his eyes and didn't speak. Momoshiki said anxiously, "You don't need to deal with the 6 paths. You just need to help us block the possible appearance of Shimizu Garashi." Ichibi added, "Whether Shimizu Garashi appears or not, I will return the Grand Tensigen to you." Aizen didn't deny it. He smiled and said, "Otsutsuki's power resides in the Grand Tensigen. I thought you would swallow him." The corners of their mouths twitched. If Naruto's chakra and Rasengan was food mixed with feces, then Otsutsuki in the Grand Tensigen was food mixed with feces. They wouldn't swallow Otsutsuki if they didn't want to live. Seeing their dark faces, Aizen didn't want to waste more time on them and said lazily, "Okay, I agree." Chapter 612. After leaving Sky City, Momoshiki asked Ichiki. He agreed so readily. Could it be a trap? He had a very bad impression of the people on this planet. In just a few days, the people on this planet had left a very deep impression on him. Hiding feces and chakra, using very obscene taijutsu to attack the weak parts, it was simply a group of unruly people. Now they had stolen the moon of these unruly people. The other side shouldn't be so silent. Most likely they were brewing some evil plan. Ichiki rubbed his chin. It should be that he saw that we have a way out, and at the same time, he was reluctant to give up our strength, so he was so easy to talk to? Humph, these inferior creatures actually treat us as resources, how hateful. Momoshiki clenched his fist. If it weren't for the lack of time, I really want to call people from the clan to let these inferior creatures see our strength. Ichiki's voice was low. If their plan succeeds, maybe 10 or 20 people won't be their opponents, and this is the reason why we stayed here. Momoshiki nodded with a dignified expression. Even us superior warriors only use inferior warriors as sacrifices when presiding over the sacred tree sacrifice, and most superior warriors have only presided over 1 or 2 sacred tree sacrifices. But what about the sacrifices on the altar in this war? Tonari Otsutsuki Kagaya's family, this is already not weaker than the chakra, and even far surpasses the superior warriors, not to mention there is also Shimizu Garashi and Sosuke Aizen, these two monsters, and the huge energy accumulated by this strange planet for thousands of years. When these forces are gathered in one person, it is even possible to give birth to the legendary Otsutsuki god. In order to not let them threaten the existence of the mother planet, the Otsutsuki god must be born between the two of us. Hearing Mamoshiki's words, Ichiki narrowed his eyes. Yes, I think so too. Mamashiki looked at him with sincere eyes. Actually, we now have a sure win method. Ichiki asked in a deep voice, what method? Mamoshiki's eyes were burning. Both of us are superior warriors, and the chakra fruit that we bear is bound to be incomparably powerful. As long as one of us is willing to sacrifice ourselves, the other can instantly surpass those two inferior creatures. The corner of Ichiki's eyes twitched wildly. He had left the main family for so many years and only dared to have the idea of Otsutsuki Tonari. But this guy was good. He had only been here for a few days and he had already released his nature. Ishur nodded. I'm stronger than you. Why don't you sacrifice yourself? Tao Shur sighed. Under normal circumstances I should be the sacrificial offering. But senior, your body has been destroyed. Even if you replace the vessel with a wedge, it will still be the body of an inferior creature. It will be difficult for you to exert your full strength. For the sake of the clan, why don't you sacrifice yourself, senior? I will keep your wedge and exchange it for Otsutsuki's body. Well, that Otsutsuki Tonari is very good. Ichiki's eyes became dangerous. Enough. You're still young. You won't be able to handle such a dangerous situation. Really? That's truly a pity? Tao Shur said regretfully. This guy knows that my body is weak and can't bear the power of two Otsutsuki. That's why he is so fearless? Ichiki thought to himself. Fortunately, he doesn't know that I have already prepared a vessel. Well, I must hold the ceremony as soon as possible. However, the same conversation in Tao Shur's view was, Ichiki proposed the idea of combining the two into one, and then laughed and said that he would soon change the vessel. The old guy is hinting that if I hand over chakra now, he can still leave me a wedge and give me a chance to start over. If I wait for him to complete the ceremony, he will seize my power by himself. No, I have to sneak attack him while he is holding the ceremony. Both of them had their own ulterior motives. After looking at each other, they laughed and turned their heads, and then began to talk again. Tao Shur said, Senior, I think that the group of people from Hollow may be unreliable in attacking the underworld. Ichiki nodded slightly. Yes, those despicable inferior creatures can't be completely trusted. We have to find other external forces. Tao Shur suggested, Senior, what do you think of those aboriginals who call themselves gods, demons, and immortals? Ichiki's mouth twitched slightly. Oh, this joke isn't funny. In the past, it was me and Kagaya who drove them out of this land. Tao Shur shook his finger. Senior, destruction doesn't only breed hatred, it also breeds fear. Maybe they saw the power of Otsutsuki so they followed us wholeheartedly? After all, the starry sky is much brighter than a planet. Ichiki was silent for a moment and then he laughed. Then I'll leave this matter to you. 2 days later, Mount Mayaboku. This is the place where Jiraiya-sensei used to train? Nagato looked around and asked. Isn't Garashi a contractor of Shikatsu Forest? Why did you, as a disciple, contract with Mount Mayaboku? It's too small, too small. Naruto shook his head. For sensei, contracting with a holy land is not important. Nagato asked again. The relationship between the three holy lands shouldn't be considered harmonious. Why would they agree to such a contract? What's wrong with that? Wasn't Jiraiya-sama like this in the past? Naruto said indifferently. However, Sasuke encountered some trouble when he was learning senjutsu. Nagato was surprised. That boy also learned senjutsu? Naruto waved his hand. Only very shallow senjutsu. That guy's talent in senjutsu is not good, so he only learned a little. However, I suspect that he felt ashamed of losing to me in senjutsu, so he deliberately didn't learn it. Nagato was quite amused and immediately asked, What's the trouble you just said? Naruto sighed. The sensei of the Ryuchi cave said that Sasuke's desire for power wasn't strong enough. He said that he would wait until his heart was fanatical and his desire for power grew to a certain extent before teaching him senjutsu. Nagato asked with interest. How did it end? Later, sensei went to the Ryuchi cave and... Naruto shrugged innocently. That's it. Nagato's mouth twitched, and he instantly understood that the sensei of the Ryuchi cave was scared. However, he could understand the mentality of the Ryuchi cave sensei. If it was in the past, even the god of ninjas like Hashirama might not be able to make them retreat. After all, the three holy lands have been passed down for thousands of years, and their hidden power can be described as unfathomable. But Garashi was too strong, so strong that the holy lands of another dimension didn't dare to resist. Nagato sighed in his heart. This is the result of not paying attention to current affairs. If those sensei were well informed, they wouldn't dare to provoke him. Chapter 613. Croak, croak, croak. Before the two reached the center of Mount Mayaboku, they heard frogs croaking. There were huge lotus leaves, giant insects, and giant toads everywhere. It was as if they suddenly came from the world of small people to the kingdom of giants. As a person who practiced senjutsu in Mount Mayaboku, Naruto was quickly recognized by some small toads. It's Naruto. Naruto is back. Hearing these voices, Nagato was a little surprised. I didn't expect you to be so popular. Naruto laughed with his hands on his waist. I'm the Frog Prince of Mount Mayaboku. Speaking of which, Jiraiya-sama plans to use the Frog Prince gimmick as the protagonist of his next book. Nagato's eyes were strange. But I heard that Jiraiya-sensei's books aren't very healthy. Naruto waved his hand and said, Impossible. How can a book about frogs have color? At this time, Toad Yoshi jumped down from a lotus leaf above. Naruto, Fukasaku-sama asked me to take you there. Grandpa-sensei already knows we're here? Naruto was surprised. Toad Yoshi rolled his eyes. Fukasaku-sama isn't great Toad-sensei. His hearing isn't bad. Under Toad Yoshi's lead, the two came to a quaint temple. Fukasaku-sama and Great Toad-sensei are inside. I won't go in. After that, Toad Yoshi skipped away. Naruto touched his head. What? There's no beginning or end. Nagato looked up at the temple. This trip is easier than I thought. As long as there's no problem inside. What problem can there be? Isn't everything fine outside? Naruto said and walked into the temple. Nagato didn't say much and just followed behind him. Walking through the spacious courtyard, the two came to a huge disc. Great Toad-sensei, wearing a doctor's hat on his head, was lying on the disc with half-closed eyes. Fukasaku-sensei, Shima-sensei, and Toad Shin stood on both sides. Naruto, you're finally here. The Great Toad Sage looked weak, making people worried that he would die in the next moment. Naruto's eyes lit up. Great Toad Sannin, did you predict my arrival? The Great Toad Immortal nodded with difficulty. His eyes were wide open, and his turbid eyes were filled with hesitation. I also prophesied that the earth would shatter, the sea would flow backwards, the sky would split open, and the entire world would be destroyed. Naruto clenched his fists. It must be those Otsutsuki again. However, the Great Toad Sage slowly shook his head. No, the one who caused all of this is not an outsider, but a person who has been placed on the altar. His name is Clear Water Rinse Sure. Naruto's eyes widened. Great Toad Sannin, are you having Alzheimer's again? The Great Toad Sage's turbid eyes lit up. No, the guidance of fate has never been clearer than now. His soul has been corrupted by the demons. He will become the funeral of the world. The only one who can save this world is you, child of prophecy, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto lowered his head and didn't speak. Seeing Naruto fall into silence, Fukasaku Sannin said, although the Great Toad Sage is often muddle-headed, this time it doesn't seem to be a joke. Shima Sannin persuaded, the leader of the real world may have been accidentally corrupted by some evil force, and the only one who can save him is you. Toad screamed, could it be that Otsutsuki from 3 years ago? I heard that after the leader sealed him, there was no follow-up. Maybe the seal was broken, and Otsutsuki's power leaked out. The Great Toad Sage continued, Naruto, I know you have doubts now, but don't worry, go bring the scroll that sealed Otsutsuki, we will solve your confusion. Nagato looked at them coldly, thinking to himself, these guys are very strange, but they don't seem to be controlled. Without evidence, I may not be able to persuade Naruto. Should I take him away by force? Just as he was secretly observing the surroundings and preparing to break through, Naruto suddenly raised his head and asked with dissatisfaction, do I look like a fool? Fukasaku Sannin froze for a moment. Naruto, why do you think so? Naruto said to himself, since your goal is the Otsutsuki Urashiki, then the people behind you are the two Otsutsuki, right? Speaking of this, the surrounding air suddenly froze, and the temperature plummeted. The Great Toad Sage suddenly let out a sneer that didn't match his appearance. as expected of that man's disciple, when did you see through this Senin's disguise? Naruto scratched his head. Actually, I didn't see through it. Your changes are really amazing. However, every time Great Toad Sage sees me, he habitually pretends to have amnesia, but you recognized me from the beginning. Great Toad Sage's eyes widened. Just because of this? He imitated the old toad's voice, demeanor, and movements exactly the same, but because it was too normal, he didn't imitate the old toad's neurotic nature? Nagato glanced sideways, thinking, this guy looks simple and honest, but I didn't expect him to be so smart. Since you saw through it, then I won't pretend anymore. Great Toad Sage turned back into Snake Sage's appearance and stared at Naruto fiercely. It's a pity that you're still too young. If you pretended to agree and waited until you returned to the real world to ask for help, maybe I'll really be in trouble. Now, you want to turn the world upside down with just you two little brats? Amidst a group of gloomy laughter, the two Sannin and Toadkin turned into Snake Princess of the Ryuchi Cave. This is indeed not safe enough, but I don't want to wait any longer. I want to ask the whereabouts of Great Toad Sage from you. And I also want to know how strong I am now. Naruto said, wearing a golden trench coat, his eyes turned into the shape of a cross, and 9 black balls appeared behind him, exuding a terrifying aura. Snake Sage's pupils suddenly shrank and he blurted out, Truth-seeking ball. How is that possible? He had experienced the ancient war, so he naturally wasn't unfamiliar with the truth-seeking ball. Although the 3 Snake Princesses' knowledge wasn't as extensive as the old ancestors, they could hear from the old ancestors' words that he was afraid of the black balls. Naruto stretched his right hand behind his back, and a truth-seeking ball turned into a black stick in his hand. If you're afraid, quickly hand over Great Toad Sage and the others. Snake Sage snorted coldly. Although the truth-seeking ball is powerful in the eyes of Sannin, it's just a powerful ninjutsu. It's still too early for me to admit defeat. Chapter 6:14. With White Snake Sennin's scream, the temple suddenly turned into a gloomy purgatory. Countless ghosts floated out from the corners and rushed towards the two. Genjutsu or something? Naruto was surprised and quickly opened the truth-seeking ball in front of him. However, these ghosts directly passed through the truth-seeking ball. Not only do they have no physical body, but they don't even have chakra? Naruto frowned slightly. It was the first time he encountered this form of attack. Just as he was about to temporarily retreat and prioritize collecting information, Nagato said, Let me do it. Summon. Prison Yama. After quickly forming hand seals, a gate of hell with the word King written above was summoned. It opened its bloody mouth and sucked in all the flying ghosts. This guy is really reliable. I can't fall behind. Naruto raised his right hand high, and a truth-seeking ball flew into his palm, and then quickly spiraled. Rikudo Sannin, Raisin Shuriken. Like a black hole, the shuriken quickly formed and then Naruto threw it out. Sensing the terrifying aura contained in the shuriken, White Snake Sennin's heart trembled. Run. At first, the 3 snake concubines didn't think much of the truth-seeking jade because it was easily penetrated by the spirit. However, when they heard the White Snake Immortal's panicked voice, they all panicked and hurriedly flew out. Tanshin Shinheim and Ishigashima Heim were slightly luckier and escaped. But Suzuheim was a step slower and was touched by the eruption of the black substance. As if the lines on a picture book were erased by an eraser, they disappeared in an instant. At the same time, the temple was directly erased from the root. Seeing this, Tionxen Shinji and Ichikajima Heim both let out a terrified scream. It's too scary. The temple was destroyed and the big toads outside naturally noticed the movement here. A toad with a large pipe in its mouth jumped over, and its tone was very unhappy. Why did the Ryuchi Cave Sannin appear in Mount Mayaboku? Naruto, what the hell is going on? Naruto quickly explained. The Great Toad Sannin in the temple was disguised by them. The real Great Toad Sannin and Sannin Grandpa were taken by them. What? One Tai's rage instantly exploded. They actually allowed the stinky snakes of the Dragon Ground Cave to kidnap a few immortals right under their noses. This was simply a great humiliation. Kill them and we'll have snake soup today. The rest of the toads also shouted with righteous indignation, Eat snake soup. Eat snake soup. Nagato reminded, the strength of the 3 holy lands should be about the same. Even if the snake restrains the toad, it's impossible for them to defeat the immortals of Mount Mayaboku without making any noise. They must have helpers. The White Snake Immortal hissed as it flicked its tongue. You little rascal, your thoughts are quite clear. Old fogies, come out. As soon as he finished speaking, the ground beneath the temple trembled. A gigantic wild boar that was several times larger than Wentai but completely rotten charged out from the ground. In the sky, a three-headed eagle flew down. There was also a monster with a normal human body, but its entire body was black and white as if its bones were exposed. Naruto asked curiously, "Are these also summoned beasts?" "Summoned beasts?" The wild boar laughed loudly. "White Snake, it seems that your days in this world aren't easy. You're actually enslaved as beasts. They're just my descendants." The White Snake Immortal emphasized, dissatisfied. "Not enslaved. We sincerely treat the summoned beasts as friends and partners," Naruto corrected loudly. For some reason, when Naruto said this, he inexplicably thought of all snakes in the parallel world. This time the wild boar really noticed Naruto and was shocked. "Otsutsuki? Look carefully. He's just a human who received a gift from Otsutsuki," the White Snake Immortal said. "No wonder Otsutsuki released us. It turns out that there's a conflict between them." The wild boar nodded, then looked at Naruto fiercely. Its voice was like thunder. "Little rascal, listen to me. The stupid bird next to me and I are both great demons." The three-headed eagle, who was combing its feathers, suddenly struck the wild boar with a thunderbolt and screamed, "Idiot wild boar, who are you calling a stupid bird?" The wild boar shook its body indifferently and groaned. "If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have been caught back then, demons?" Naruto suddenly realized. He had been cramming a lot of knowledge in the past few days and knew that there were many demon seals on this land. For example, Sensei was said to have encountered two demons. One was a demon that came out of the box of bliss during the Third World War, and the other was a demon that was imprisoned in the dream world. Thinking about it, it's reasonable for him to encounter two demons. What about the skeleton? Is he also a demon? The skeleton opened its eyes, full of madness. "I am the evil god of the end. Sinner, you have an unclean and evil aura." Evil god, I seem to have heard this name somewhere. But where is it? Naruto thought hard and finally an idea flashed through his mind. By the way, Wang Thijuan senpai. Naruto suddenly realized and then reacted. Gods seem to be able to receive the prayers of believers. This guy is so irritable. Is it because Thijuan senpai prays to him every day for the will of fire? Thinking of this, Naruto said tentatively, "Where the leaves fly," the evil god, who was blabbering on, replied reflexively, "Fire also grows endlessly." Naruto applauded hard. Full score. Full score for the understanding of the will of fire. Sensing the strange eyes next to him, evil god couldn't hold it anymore. "Blasphemer, you are sinking in despair and fear." This voice seemed to have a terrifying magic power. Except for a few toads, all the big toads around him went berserk. Kill, kill, kill. The eyes of these toads turned blood red, and they roared unconsciously and killed each other. Fortunately, toads like the Bunta brothers who had weapons suitable for their size were few. Without fangs and claws, no matter how fierce the fight was, it was difficult to be in danger in a short time. Naruto was also affected by this chaotic power, but he woke up in an instant. Huh. Why am I okay? Naruto touched his body. "You have the power of Old Man Rikudo. Of course, these guys who have been eliminated by time won't work on you," Kyubi said in his consciousness space. "But I heard from Sensei that Aizen's genjutsu is so strong because of the power of the gods," Naruto said, puzzled. Kyubi was silent for a moment and then he roared, "We're fighting. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Go. If you don't know, then you don't know. Why are you being so fierce?" Naruto complained in his heart, rushed forward, and kicked the so-called evil god away. Chapter 6:15. Even though it was just a normal kick, with the help of the 6 paths of reincarnation, he could easily crush a mountain with a single kick. Naturally, evil god was no exception and he was directly kicked. Gamabunta laughed. "Good kick." However, the White Snake Immortal and the other 2 fiendish demons also laughed loudly. "Good kick." Gamabunta was shocked and quickly paid attention to the surroundings. He saw that the big toads didn't change at all and they were still roaring like crazy. "Be careful, that guy isn't dead yet." In the next moment, the exploded flesh and blood gathered together and reformed the appearance of evil god. Then he stared at Naruto and chanted, "Karma payback." Boom. Like an ordinary person being hit by a bullet, blood suddenly splashed out from Naruto's chest. My attack was condensed to a point and returned. Naruto was surprised. Although this injury can be healed in an instant, it's still very scary. With his current strength he was still injured. Heighten Senpai seems to be able to do something similar, but he needs blood as a medium. This guy can do it without a medium as expected of evil god. Naruto thought to himself. However, if it's just the same attack on me as long as I don't take the initiative to attack him, it shouldn't be a big problem. The reason why he was injured was entirely because his attack was too strong. If the opponent stupidly stabbed him like Heighten Senpai, even if he stabbed him to death he wouldn't be hurt. Thinking of this, Naruto took the initiative to rush in the direction of the wild boar demon. The wild boar demon's body was rotten, and its stench was almost comparable to a poisonous fog. Even the big toads who had lost their minds didn't want to get close to it. If it wasn't for Snake Sage's genjutsu, this guy should have been discovered as soon as he entered Mount Mayaboku. Naruto thought so, raised his hand and shot a super large Dao-seeking Raisin Shuriken at the wild boar demon. To everyone's surprise the wild boar demon didn't dodge, but took the initiative to meet it. The Dao-seeking Raisin Shuriken exploded, like a black hole swallowing everything around it. Although the wild boar demon was tough, it didn't have much resistance in the face of this level of power, and half of its body was instantly erased. However, it was countless times bigger than the dead snake princess, and this injury couldn't make it sleep forever. With only the front half of its body left, Zhu Jianxiang roared loudly with red eyes. Pretending to be a ghost, get to work. What could it be? Naruto suddenly had an ominous premonition. The evil god danced for a while as if he had gone mad and then shouted, "Damage, transfer." In the next moment, an invisible force fell on Naruto out of thin air. This time his injuries weren't as simple as just spilling blood. His entire body was spewing out blood, and his aura instantly dropped. Seeing this, Nagato, who had been fighting fiercely with the White Snake Immortal, and the three Wuntai brothers who were fighting the three-headed eagle subconsciously held back their attacks. Under such circumstances they really couldn't attack with all their might. What if the enemy reflected the damage? On the other side, the demonic wild boar, whose body had been mostly destroyed, was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. It yelled in dissatisfaction. "Half of my body was destroyed, how could that little brat only spit out so little blood? Evil god, did you take my bribe?" Even the sometimes chaotic evil god couldn't help but roar when he heard this. "This brat has the power of Otsutsuki, and you think I don't lose any damage when I transfer damage?" That being said, the frogs' hearts continued to sink. The demon beast's regenerative abilities and the evil god's ability to transfer damage were simply unfathomable. Even if the damage they transferred to others was not as effective as the damage they received, it was still very troublesome. These demons had high defense and health and regenerated quickly. The power that could completely kill them could also be reflected back to Naruto. In other words, to defeat the demons they first had to defeat the evil god. But the problem was that the evil god's efficiency of reflecting damage to oneself was higher. What if the evil god didn't die, but directly reflected them to death? Moreover, if the evil god could transfer damage, what if the demons could help him share the damage? Besides, they had the help of the White Snake Immortal. No wonder even Otsutsuki could only seal them. Nagato exclaimed in his heart and asked, "Do you know sealing jutsu?" "Sealing?" Bunta looked down at his frog claws and black lines appeared on his forehead. "What do you think?" "It seems that I can only use my Chibaku Tensei." Nagato sighed. He had never sealed anyone with Chibaku Tensei, so it was inevitable that he was a little lacking in confidence. At this time, Naruto barely stabilized his injury. "Let me do it," Bunta said in a deep voice. "Naruto, your jutsu is too powerful. It's best not to use it." "It's not an offensive ninjutsu, but..." Naruto quickly formed hand seals, multiple shadow clone jutsu. Thousands of Naruto appeared around him. Then Naruto all over the mountain chanted at the same time, "Where the leaves fly," as if hundreds of thousands of mosquitoes were buzzing in his ears. The evil god held his head and roared, "Stop chanting, stop chanting." Seeing this, Bunta was shocked. It turns out that the will of fire really works. The White Snake Immortal was also dumbfounded. The will of fire was so terrifying. However, he quickly reacted. "Sound?" The White Snake Immortal sneered and pointed at the evil god. "Earring stripping." The next moment, the evil god's face showed a happy childlike smile. "So comfortable." The immortal and the two demons also laughed. "Let's see what you can do now." Naruto's heart hardened. He used the kamikaze jutsu taught by his sensei on the evil god and prayed madly to the evil god. However, his prayers were all about the will of fire. Unlike the previous sound harassment, this prayer could be said to hit the soul directly. Thousands of voices chanting the will of fire surged in the soul, and the evil god directly foamed at the mouth. Then the toads who fell into madness woke up. Everyone was stunned. The most troublesome evil god was defeated just like that? The white snake immortal noticed the key point. Hurry up and destroy his clones. He can't interfere with the evil god alone. The wild boar demon and three-headed eagle reacted. The former rushed forward and instantly trampled a dozen of Naruto's clones to death, while the latter blew the surrounding clones away. Naruto's clones weren't weak, but the problem was that his injuries weren't completely healed when he made the clones. The clones were also in a weakened state. Not to mention the great demon and white snake immortal were extremely strong. Protect Naruto. Nagato and the big toads quickly stepped forward to stop them. If it was just to protect Naruto's body, it was naturally easy. But with thousands of clones, it was inevitable that there would be flaws in their protection. In just 10 seconds, more than 100 of Naruto's clones were destroyed, and the evil god state seemed to be stabilized a lot. Just when everyone was anxious, an arrogant voice mixed with a little bit of annoyance came. Naruto, you don't seem to be able to do it. Chapter 616. The voice continued to clamor. Trapped by these beasts, it's a disgrace to us. Naruto knew who the voice was as soon as he heard it and said unconvinced. Sasuke, these guys are very powerful. Powerful? They won't be for long. Sasuke didn't say much and directly activated his Mangekyo. First self-mutilation, then heaven and earth. Instantly, the wild boar demon felt a sense of weakness that it had never felt before, causing it to fall to the ground. Boom. Like a falling mountain, the wild boar demon's huge body smashed a huge hole in the ground. One down. Before Sasuke could finish his words, he saw wild boar shaking his body and standing up, groaning. Kid, what do you want to say? This vitality, are you kidding me? Sasuke's eyes twitched. This was equivalent to pulling the wild boar demon's HP below 20%, but the wild boar demon recovered it in a few breaths. Sasuke didn't believe it and tried again on three-headed eagle and white snake sage. Three-headed eagle's recovery speed was also terrifying. Because of its relatively small size, it recovered faster than the wild boar demon. As for white snake sage, it used snakeskin jutsu to refresh its status. Seeing this scene, Sasuke was a little depressed. His magnificent entrance, other than crippling himself, none of the sage demons were fine. Didn't this make him seem retarded? But soon, Sasuke understood the crux of the problem. His dojutsu strength was that it weakened both his body and chakra. But these demons didn't have chakra at all. The only one with chakra, white snake sage, was chakra senjutsu, which was fundamentally different from him. Their physical weakness naturally didn't affect them much. While Sasuke was secretly depressed, the two demons and one sage were also vigilant. Losing 80% of his HP for no apparent reason was already extremely terrifying. Madara crossed his arms and sneered. This is your ability? Isn't it a little ridiculous? Sasuke was a little embarrassed. If you have time to watch a joke, why don't you take the initiative to attack? Well, I'll let you see how I fight. Madara instantly transformed into the complete body Susanoo and waved his sword at the wild boar. The wild boar relied on its thick skin and thick flesh. It was not afraid of Madara's attack and directly used its head to attack. Boom. One person and one boar were similar in size, but the result was that Susanoo slightly shook, and the boar's huge body was forced to retreat a few steps, and blood flowed from its head. However, this injury didn't make it retreat at all. Instead, it stimulated the fierceness in its heart, and it hit Madara with red eyes. This time, Madara abandoned the sword and directly strangled the boar's neck with his hands, and slammed it to the ground with a shoulder throw. On the other side, Nagato kept using Shinra Tensei and Chibaku Tensei to stall for time. The strength of the two snake girls in the Ryuchi cave was similar to that of Fukasaku Sennin, and they were far from being his match. However, the white snake sage was different. Its strength was above Nagato's. If not for the fact that it was not used to the environment of Mount Myaboku, Nagato would have been defeated long ago. As for the three-headed eagle, it was stronger than the three Bunta brothers, but because of the addition of other toads, the battle was barely balanced. These demons are weaker than Madara. After discovering this, Sasuke was even more depressed. After being strengthened by Rikudo Sannin, his strength was even above Madara. If he fought steadily, he would have already controlled the overall situation. But the problem was, as soon as he came in, he saw Naruto being beaten, and his breath was weak, so he mistakenly thought that the enemy was very powerful, and subconsciously used his divine skill, which led to this embarrassing situation. It's all Naruto's fault. But I'm about to recover my strength. At this moment, Naruto, who had been praying devoutly, suddenly shouted, "I sense that the great toad sage is among the stone frogs in the spring." What? The old man and the others were petrified? Bunta was shocked. It should be a special trick. Naruto guessed. As the demon wild boar took the beating, it turned its head back in shock and anger. "White Snake, why didn't you kill those toads?" However, White Snake Sannin was more irritable than it. "You think I didn't want to? Killing it can't hide from those little ones outside." The three-headed eagle screamed. "Then kill all those little toads. What are you afraid of?" White Snake Sannin calmed down. "That old toad prophesied too much. His body is weak and it can't exert much strength." "No, you should be afraid because I've recovered." Sasuke felt that he could do it again. He transformed into full-body Susanoo, enlarged his Kusanagi sword and stabbed at White Snake. Noticing Sasuke's attack, White Snake Sennin's eyes were cold. "Oh, so it's that little devil." Of course, it didn't forget the humiliation it suffered when facing that man. It couldn't defeat Shimizu Garashi, but it couldn't defeat Shimizu Garashi's disciple. Thinking of this, White Snake Sannin decisively abandoned Nagato and controlled the earth to flip over. "Sannin, Fuji reincarnation." Sasuke staggered and fell directly to the ground. "Oh, you can't even control your body and you still say?" White Snake Sannin sneered. Suddenly, it found that the giant in its sight disappeared. Before it could react, Susanoo's huge body pressed it under the ground. White Snake Sannin was crushed into a meat patty, and it escaped by digging a hole in the ground with a small white snake. Sasuke stood up and humiliatingly stepped on the meat patty a few times. White Snake Sannin, that's it? White Snake Sannin, who came out of the ground, was much weaker. It looked at Sasuke and gritted its teeth. "What's there to be proud of? Isn't it just a powerful substitution jutsu?" Sasuke retorted. "Then aren't you, who was almost crushed to death by the substitution jutsu, useless?" White Snake Sannin said coldly. "If it were someone else, I might have no way to deal with this kind of space ability. But who told you to be the contractor of the Ryuchi cave?" Sasuke instinctively had an ominous premonition. "What do you want to do?" Before he finished his words, Sasuke disappeared instantly. Naruto was shocked. Where did such a big Sasuke go? Nagato's mouth twitched slightly. It's reverse summoning jutsu. He was summoned back to the Ryuchi cave. Naruto understood. White Snake Sannin was the ancestor of the Ryuchi cave. It had the power to control most snake summoning beasts. Even if it wasn't in the Ryuchi cave, it could use its bloodline power to make the snake summoning beasts in the Ryuchi cave use reverse summoning jutsu on Sasuke. Thinking of this, Naruto muttered. But Sasuke has Flying Thunder God and Heavenly Hand Force. He should be able to come back soon, right? Sure enough, Sasuke returned to his original place in the next moment. However, before he could finish a word, Jutsu used reverse summoning jutsu again. Next, Sasuke was like a faulty TV screen, flashing and disappearing from time to time. After a few cycles, he finally didn't come back. Chapter 617. Naruto sighed. He really didn't expect that Sasuke would leave in such a way. So, what else did Sasuke do after he came on the field except to suppress White Snake Sage? He can't do anything, but he's the best at acting cool. Sure enough, I have to save the situation. After recovering, Naruto let the clone continue to consume evil god's energy, while he stood up and threw a raisin shuriken at the wild boar. After all, his truth-seeking ball can't be regenerated. Although he can replenish it with Hagoromo Sannin, it's not good to waste it. Moreover, he already tested that the truth-seeking ball can't kill the wild boar in seconds. Coupled with the wild boar's amazing recovery speed, he had to use the raisin shuriken first. Why does everyone attack me first? The wild boar was depressed. Without evil god's cooperation, it naturally didn't want to take the hit and subconsciously wanted to avoid it. However, Naruto teleported in front of it and kicked it directly into the path of the raisin shuriken. The wild boar demon screamed in pain and opened its bloody mouth to bite Naruto. Naruto didn't dodge. Enduring the stench, he stood on the wild boar's lower teeth, put his hands on the teeth and then lifted it. With a click, the wild boar's mouth was dislocated and couldn't be closed. Seeing this, the three-headed eagle hurried over to help. The three heads opened their long sharp beaks, and the three forces of thunder, flame and poison were brewing in their mouths. You can use attribute attacks without chakra? Naruto was a little surprised and then stretched out his 9 tails excitedly behind him. Then let's see who has more power. Before coming here, he borrowed some power from the other 8 bijou according to Hagoromo Sennin's instructions. On the 9 orange tails, the raisin shuriken containing the 9 bijou's power was ready to launch. The three-headed eagle's 6 eyes widened. How can this guy's power be so complicated? Isn't he afraid of explosion? Boom. The power of the two sides collided violently in the void. Naruto's raisin shuriken swallowed the three-headed eagle's attack with overwhelming advantage, and then hit the three-headed eagle without slowing down. In the next moment, a scorched bird fell from the sky. But soon, a brand new three-headed bird was born from the charred body. Sure enough, these demons are too hard to kill. Naruto sighed in his heart, but he wasn't impatient. With his participation, the situation had been reversed. Even though he was maintaining the strength of his doppelganger, he was not at a disadvantage against the two of them. In fact, he was even suppressing them. Madara and Nagato joined forces, and in just a few seconds the white snake sage shed its skin 4 times. Its current body was like a small snake that had just hatched from an egg. It was as if a gentle poke could pierce through its skin. Let's not talk about those 2 thick-skinned fellows, but if I continue like this, I'll become a dead snake. The white snake immortal lamented in its heart. At this moment, a spatial door opened in the void, and an extremely powerful repulsive force erupted from it. Caught off guard, all the living beings in the fierce battle were sent flying. In the next moment, a pale-skinned youth with an elegant demeanor walked out of the spatial door. "It's you, Tonari Otsutsuki," Naruto shouted excitedly. After all, he still remembered Hayashi's request. "Otsutsuki." One sage and 2 demons looked at Tonari with some vigilance. Nagato, who noticed this detail, was secretly surprised. They don't seem to know him. So, is it really the Shell organization behind them? But why did the Shell organization suddenly appear? Without giving them too much time to think, Tonari looked at the white snake sage and said, "I'm here to help Otsutsuki Momoshiki take you away." Naruto shouted angrily, "You actually cooperated with the Shell organization. I was wrong about you." Tonari shook his head calmly. "This is just part of the deal. Besides, what does your opinion have to do with us?" Naruto clenched his fist. "Humph. I won't let you take them away." Tonari joked. "You don't seem to have anyone here who is familiar with the ability of space. How are you going to stop me?" Naruto was stunned. "Yes, Sasuke is on strike. He can't stop this guy alone." Tonari continued. "I'm not here to fight with you. If you want to fight, leave it for the final battle. Moreover, the Ninja Alliance is not as calm as before you left." Naruto was shocked and hurriedly asked, "What do you mean?" However, Tonari no longer spoke and left with the monsters. "Bastard. I hate people who only say half of their words," Naruto said angrily. Nagato said, "Not calm doesn't mean there's a riot. It may be a celebration. After all, with Garashi in charge, it's hard for anything to happen." Naruto nodded vigorously. "It must be like this." At this moment, 3 figures suddenly appeared in everyone's sight, accompanied by someone's familiar voice. "This time I brought Niji and bordered soil from Shikatsu Forest. Even if you defy me." "Where are they?" Naruto was speechless. "You really know how to time it. They just left and you came." Sasuke decisively threw the blame. "How can you let them go?" "What can I do?" Naruto complained. "Tonari came to save them. You have the ability of space and you're not here. How can I stop you?" Sasuke froze and coughed twice. "It's all that snake's fault." Niji's eyes widened. Was he the only one who didn't participate in any battle? After returning to the Alliance, Woodleaf Town was in chaos. However, this chaos was somewhat different from what everyone imagined. It wasn't smashing and looting, it was chaos. "Catch him, don't let him run away. Wear gloves, be careful they bite you. Danzo-senpai, don't pee on the telephone pole." In the streets, from time to time, people ran wildly on all fours, cats walked upright on 2 legs, and even rotten zombies wandered on the streets. This bizarre scene made them confused. Was it because they didn't do it the right way? At this moment, a weak voice came from beside them. "You're back. Naruto turned his head and was startled by the state of Hagoromo-senpai. Hagoromo-senpai's shadow faded a lot, as if he was going to disappear completely in the next moment. Naruto asked worriedly, "Grandpa Hagoromo, what happened to you?" Hagoromo shook his head slightly. "I'm just a little injured." "Even you were injured?" Madara squinted his eyes. "What happened while we were away?" Hagoromo sighed. "Simply put, Otsutsuki Ichiki and Otsutsuki Momoshiki took the underworld from me. In the process of fighting, the underworld experienced violent turbulence. Some souls escaped from the underworld and entered the rotten corpses. Some souls were disturbed by this and exchanged with the surrounding animals. Then it became what you see now." Chapter 618. Hearing Rikudo's explanation, everyone was stunned. This development was really unexpected. Sasuke asked in a deep voice. If it was Shell's people, Sensei shouldn't have just stood by. Did Shell's people intervene? Rikudo's expression was solemn. Aizen stopped the leader for a while. By the time he left, it had already happened. Naruto's face was full of self-blame. If it weren't for our potential, you wouldn't have been taken away from the underworld. Rikudo sighed in his heart. Although he wasn't the opponent of Ichiki and Momoshiki, if it weren't for the eternal truth-seeking ball that Garashi brought to the parallel world, and Naruto and Sasuke, he wouldn't have been defeated so quickly. Of course he didn't need to say it out loud. Rikudo shook his head and said, "It's my fault for losing the Pure Land. How can I push the blame onto you? Moreover, it's already happened. It doesn't make sense to talk about it. Let's stabilize the situation as soon as possible." Yes, the situation is indeed a bit troublesome. Naruto nodded in distress. Then he heard a voice from before again. "Former Elder Danzo. Yes, woof woof, come out." "Danzo?" Naruto muttered. "I heard from Dad that this guy seems to have persecuted him and Sensei before. He seems to be a bad guy." "No, he's scum." Neji recalled the scene of his father being forced when he was a child and gritted his teeth. Still feeling unreconciled, Neji jumped to the side of the roof and opened his Byakugan. After searching for a while, he finally caught Danzo and brought him back. After finding Danzo, a nurse thanked him profusely. "Thank you so much for helping me find him. Hey, you're leader's disciple, right? I seem to have seen you at the world's first ninja conference." Neji smiled. "Yes, don't talk, let me guess." The nurse said excitedly. "You must be Naruto, right?" Neji's mouth twitched slightly. "No, I'm not." "Oh, then you're Sasuke-sama." "My name is Hyuga Neji. Look at my Byakugan, I'm from the Hyuga clan." Hearing Ninji's hysterical roar, the nurse smiled embarrassedly. "I was so excited that I forgot. By the way, what was your ranking in the competition?" The anger on Niji's face suddenly froze and he coughed twice. "That's not important, that. Right, didn't this guy collude with the Akatsuki organization? Why didn't you execute him?" Speaking of Danzo, the other party's attention was diverted. "Who told him to be Naruto?" Because the soul inside Danzo's body was that of a dog, the nurse had no intention of hiding it for him. For the sake of Naruto's reputation, his matter can only be dealt with in a low-key manner. However, the ending of being mentally ill is a very cruel punishment for someone like him. Ningji snorted coldly. "He got off easy. Take him back to the hospital first. When we find his soul," at this time Six Paths suddenly said, "Are you saying that his soul has been transferred?" "That's not right. His soul is very stable. It's a human soul." Everyone was shocked when they heard what the Six Paths said. "If this guy is Danzo, doesn't that mean?" The nurse was horrified at first, but she quickly reacted. "But he just peed on the pole, and he didn't vomit when he heard the name Naruto." Sasuke suddenly said, "His body is trembling slightly, which means that he's not unresponsive, but he's restraining his physiological reaction." The nurse suddenly understood. Yes, with the former Elder Danzo's ability, he could have done a lot of things in 8 years. Naruto tentatively shouted, Naruto, fire?" Sure enough, Danzo's body trembled more and more. Finally, he couldn't pretend to be stupid and shouted loudly. "Enough. Shut up." Everyone was really sure that he was Danzo himself. After confirming this, they couldn't help but be shocked. In order to escape, this guy pretended to be possessed by a dog and peed on a pole on the street. How cruel. Are all the older generation ninjas this cruel? Danzo's eyes were gloomy. Not to mention that his chakra was sealed. Even if it wasn't, he wouldn't be able to defeat these people. So he said, Just you wait, I'll be back and I'll change Shimizu Garashi's mistake. Niji couldn't listen anymore. Mistake? You traitor, you really have the face to say that. It's because of Sensei that the alliance can develop to this point today. Alliance, what about with Leaf? Danzo said bitterly. It's called an alliance, but in fact, all the ninja villages have perished. Isn't that good? Naruto said. The whole world became a family. There was no war, no pain, and everyone could live in peace every day. Of course not. Danzo clenched his fist. Forgetting history is tantamount to betrayal. The other ninja villages killed so many of Woodleaf's people. Why should we share peace with them? Shimizu Garashi should have enslaved all of them, leaving only Woodleaf. Everyone frowned. They didn't understand the hatred of the previous generation, so this question was really difficult to answer. At this moment, a sigh came from a distance. At this time, are you still lying to yourself? Danzo. Hearing this familiar voice, Danzo turned his head. Hiruzen, what do you mean? Hiruzen said in a deep voice. You always talk about Woodleaf, but do you really care about Woodleaf? Without waiting for Danzo to refute, Kuroto continued. Maybe you did have such an idea, but gradually you used, for Konoha, as an excuse to hypnotize yourself, and it seemed that no matter what you did, you could always use this excuse to excuse yourself. But if you really do it for Woodleaf, you should be able to face up to what Garashi did for Woodleaf. You can ask anyone in Woodleaf, do they like the current Woodleaf, or do they want to return to the past Woodleaf? Because of the noise made by these people, many people have crowded around. Return to the past, what's so good about the past? I still like the present life. Yes. Konoha suffered the pain, but it also inflicted pain. According to what he said, in this world only the people of those small countries are clean. Hearing the discussion around him, Danzo was silent. You don't dare to ask because you know the answer in your heart, right? Hiruzen said in a deep voice. Garashi brought changes to Woodleaf in the world. Of course it's not a mistake, it's a miracle. This miracle is the light of a hero. Hearing Sandame's words, Naruto and Sasuke subconsciously thought of the parallel world, then nodded vigorously. Sensei is a hero. Chapter 619. The crowd didn't think that Sandame Naruto was flattering him. To most of them, the word hero was far from enough to commend their leader's achievements. Changing the world, revolutionizing the mountains and rivers, this was the change that man made to the world. The Sandame sighed and said as if he was comforting a child, "Don't make trouble, the leader is thinking that you have indeed done something for Konoha. Because of mercy, he spared your life. If you continue to make trouble..." Danzo, who had been silent, became excited after hearing this. I don't need this kind of weak mercy. If he kills me, I'll think highly of him. Mercy to the enemy will only turn into hatred and revenge. At this time, a gentle and calm voice came from the distance. Danzo-san, you may have misunderstood. In my eyes, you're not as strong as the enemy. Hearing this voice, Danzo's face turned red with shame. What did you say? I once defeated you. Hey bastard, listen to me. However, Garashi didn't even look at him. After saying this, he left with Rikudo and the others. This arrogant attitude made Danzo roar. Shimizu Garashi, you'll regret this. Back in the central building, Naruto couldn't wait to ask. Sensei, what should we do now? Everyone's souls have been exchanged. Garashi shook his head gently. Don't worry. I've marked them with Skynet. Soon the souls will be exchanged back one by one. Oh, is that so? Naruto suddenly said. Rikudo also breathed a sigh of relief. The guilt in his heart lessened a lot. That's great. Garashi asked. What's the situation with the three holy lands? Sasuke first explained the previous battle, then added. Mount Myaboku and Shikatsu Forest are willing to join the war and contribute to the alliance. Garashi rubbed his chin. First, they attacked the underworld. Then they unsealed the old masters. It seems that the two Otsutsuki are very smart. Niji was worried. Sensei, what if Hollow and Shell cooperate and attack us first? How should we deal with the attack of the two organizations? Sasuke muttered. The reason why the two organizations are cooperating is because we are the strongest. If we pretend that we are no match for them and retreat in defeat, maybe we can break up their cooperation? Pretending to be defeated? Naruto questioned. Isn't it easy to be seen through in a war? Yes. Sasuke nodded. So, we need a real fiasco. If you want to deceive the enemy, you have to deceive yourself first. Naruto looked straight into Sasuke's eyes. Does the fiasco also include sacrifice? You want everyone to throw their lives away for a possibility? Sasuke was silent for a moment. Sometimes, sacrifice is necessary. Besides, as long as Sensei can win the final victory, the dead can eventually be resurrected. Say no more. Garashi knocked on the table. You can fool the two Otsutsuki, but do you think it's possible to fool Aizen? After all, the biggest traitor was himself. Sasuke froze for a moment. Thinking of the other party's style, he couldn't help but say with a wry smile, I thought too simply of war. In the final battle, all strategies will be difficult to work. The only thing left is a competition of comprehensive strength. Garashi looked at Rikudo. 3 years ago I sealed Otsutsuki Urushiki. Sensei, use his remains to restore your strength. Although Rikudo didn't like Otsutsuki's bad habits, he also knew that now wasn't the time to be pretentious. He nodded slightly. I will restore my strength as soon as possible. As for you, Garashi looked at the few people who were eager to try. Next, I will borrow your brain through the dream world, and even the world's computational power to help me enter the field of Kekkei Genkai. Over the years, he used the dream world to arrange research and development tasks, brainstorming, and finally deduced the fusion of chakra to the 5 elements into one, yin and yang into one, leaving only the final step of omniscient Banzhou. You're not a Kekkei Genkai? Rikudo was shocked. If he wasn't a Kekkei Genkai, how could he beat those Otsutsuki? Is this reasonable? Garashi smiled helplessly. I never said I was. His strength was based on the comprehensive strength of the 4 major systems. He was indeed not a match for those 2 Otsutsuki in the field of chakra alone. It seems so. Rikudo nodded as if he was infected by Naruto. Because Garashi's strength was so strong that Rikudo forgot that the man in front of him hadn't even stepped into the final field. What's so surprising about this? Madara despised Rikudo. Isn't his fire release stronger than most people's Kekkei Genkai? The power of a technique depends on the ability of the user after all. By the way, what is Kekkei Genkai? Rikudo continued. Although I know Kekkei Genkai, that's the ability given by the bloodline. Without the bloodline, I can at most achieve the fusion of the 5 elements. Rikudo's expression became solemn. If you can rely on yourself to take this step, the Kekkei Genkai you achieve will definitely be stronger than most of the Otsutsuki. This is just like the medical ninjutsu sealed in the medical scroll. Naturally, it's not as flexible as the medical ninjutsu used by the user himself. Of course, it's not absolute. Just like ordinary medical ninjutsu, no matter how flexible their medical ninjutsu is, it can't be compared to the medical ninjutsu sealed by Garashi. The strongest Kekkei Genkai closest to the bloodline source and hosted in the eyes of the reincarnation won't be worse than Garashi's Kekkei Genkai. Don't rely on yourself but on everyone. Garashi shook his head slightly. My wisdom alone can't take that step. Compared to Rikudo's solemn expression, Naruto and the other 2 were excited. Great, can we help Sensei too? I will do my best. Just like children who are happy to help their parents, they are also excited to help their sensei. Garashi smiled. Don't be so serious. While borrowing the calculation power of my brain, I will also pass on my own cultivation insights to everyone. You have to seize this opportunity to improve your strength. Sasuke said thoughtfully. Sensei, while borrowing the calculation power of our brain, you also let us understand a higher level of ability. Garashi said seriously. This is a very rare opportunity. If it weren't for the upcoming war, I wouldn't have consumed the potential of the dream world and overloaded it. After that, Garashi added in his heart. At the same time, it's also to prevent me from being blown up by chakra. Not to mention the chakra on this planet, there are 8 Otsutsuki: Kinshiki, Yureiji, Mamashiki, Ichiki, Tonari, Himura, Hagoromo, and Kagaya. Except for the first 2, everyone's strength is no weaker than a high-level warrior of Otsutsuki. With such a huge amount of chakra gathered together, Garashi suspects that he may be blown up. Even if he has the other 3 systems to maintain the balance, and this time he has gathered all the ancient rulers of the ninja world, the balance will most likely not be maintained. After all, one Otsutsuki can suppress the so-called old rulers. With so many Otsutsuki, the energy gathered may even surpass the stars in the starry sky. In order to ensure that he can get the greatest improvement, and at the same time not to kill himself, he needs to prepare for the distribution of chakra in advance. This is an exercise to establish a deeper connection through the dream world. Chapter 620. When Garashi was about to take the last step on Sky Castle, a group of people gathered in front of the great Tensigan. Looking at the huge Tensigan in front of her, Karen tilted her head. I didn't expect those bastards to return the great Tensigan to us. Tonari chuckled softly. The great Tensigan is a source of pollution for them. They can't wait to give it away. Then why didn't they destroy it or throw it away? Could it be a trap? Raiga asked cautiously. The great Tensigan is on the same level as them. To destroy it they must do their best and pay a heavy price. Of course they don't want to sacrifice it for others. After a pause, Tonari continued, as for throwing it away, they saw my connection with the great Tensigan at the conference. They should understand that no matter where the great Tensigan is, I can find it. Then why not throw it in the couplet? Raiga knew he asked a stupid question as soon as he said it. Although the great Tensigan was a hot potato, it also had its value. Didn't the Shell organization use it to make a deal with them? Throwing the great Tensigan to the alliance was the basis for their cooperation. Actually, there is one more thing. Aizen suddenly said, Otsutsuki Ichiki can no longer hide the great Tensigan in the dojutsu space because he is about to be reincarnated. Reincarnation? Tonari wasn't surprised that Aizen knew about the Shell organization. After all, he already guessed where his childhood friend went. Tonari asked, then who did he choose as the vessel? Aizen said calmly, Kimimaro. Kimimaro? Tonari was a little surprised. He thought it would be Yugo. Aizen twisted his fingers. Kagaya Otsutsuki is sealed on the moon, and Kimimaro's bloodline has some connection with Kagaya. Maybe he intends to start from there. Karen was a little worried. Kimimaro won't be discovered by them, or his will be completely eroded, right? Aizen chuckled softly. Don't worry, with their attainments in the soul, it's impossible for them to discover my arrangement. As for Kimimaro, I believe his will never disappear. Seeing Karen was still nervous, Aizen smiled and shook his head. Then I will reveal a little more. The reincarnation ceremony won't go so smoothly. Reincarnation ceremony? Is it because of Mamashiki Otsutsuki? Tonari was shocked. Is it because of the last meeting? Aizen nodded. Although I can't directly influence their thinking, I can still influence their hearing. Karen said excitedly, the two Otsutsuki will kill each other, and Kimimaro will take advantage of the situation. It's not easy to be a fisherman. Aizen shook his head slightly. Kimimaro is too weak compared to them. He's not even qualified to take advantage of the situation. However, I didn't expect him to take them down directly. I just wanted to plant a seed. Karen nodded as if she understood. Leah and the others were shocked. What did they just hear? Lord Aizen had been plotting against the Shell organization for many years, and even planned to pluck the peaches. Such abilities and methods were truly awe-inspiring. Other than being shocked, they were more excited. The Shell organization was already in Aizen's hands. Was there even a need to talk about the outcome of the war? It was a sure win. Then Aizen looked at Tonari. Absorb the chakra in the great reincarnation eye. Should I absorb it all? Tonari was hesitant. He wasn't afraid of the demon's power. He was able to surpass Mamashiki Otsutsuki because of his bloodline and the demon system. Of course, he wasn't afraid of the demon. What he was worried about was that this would cause Himura's consciousness to disappear. Aizen naturally saw his worry and said, Don't worry, I will protect your ancestor's consciousness. In fact, he couldn't transcend because of his entanglement with the demon's consciousness. After you absorb his power, you can free him from this endless struggle. Hearing Aizen's words, Tonari was relieved to absorb his ancestor's power. Seeing that Tonari, who was a rich second generation, found the inheritance left by his ancestor, Kakuzu said with envy. If only we could have Otsutsuki's power. Hearing this, Leah suddenly thought of a rumor and asked, Lord Aizen, I heard that you asked Dr. A to study Otsutsuki's bloodline transplant? Aizen nodded. Yes, there is such a thing. Leah was excited. Was the research successful? Not only him, everyone was quietly listening. It's okay if they didn't know, but if they knew, they would be envious of Otsutsuki's bloodline. Not to mention other things, the lifespan alone was enough to make them drool. However, Aizen sighed. Failed. He had to admit that his idea of mass-producing Otsutsuki through bloodline transplantation was a bit naive. The fundamental factor that restricted this idea wasn't ability, but chakra. Ordinary ninjas' chakra comes from their own refining, but Otsutsuki's chakra comes from the absorption of heaven and earth. This is the reason why their chakra is millions of times stronger than ordinary ninjas. At the same time, It's also the main reason why Otsutsuki's members are so few. With the current concentration of chakra in the shinobi world, even if Otsutsuki's bloodline is transplanted, it's impossible to awaken unless one can find a place with a high concentration of chakra. Listening to Aizen's explanation, Leah couldn't believe it. Wait, isn't chakra refined from physical and spiritual energy? How can there be chakra in nature? Aizen asked with a smile. Have you ever wondered where the chakra you used to use ninjutsu went? This. Leah opened his mouth wide and asked carefully. Is it natural? Chakra can be absorbed by Otsutsuki but rocks can't. This shows that there is an essential difference between the two. Aizen continued. To be precise, except for a few ninjutsu, most ninjutsu will eventually dissipate into chakra, and this chakra will remain in the shinobi world. Kisame's expression changed slightly. Aizen-sama, I heard that Otsutsuki's lifespan is 1,000 years. Is it to wait for the chakra to accumulate to a certain level before harvesting? He used to think it was strange. If the Otsutsuki's purpose was to absorb a little bit of chakra from the human body, why would it take 1,000 years? Harvesting once every 60 years should be enough. After all, 60 years is enough for a generation to change. But if it was absorbed with the chakra that had been produced and discharged into nature over 1,000 years by more than a dozen generations, then it could be completely explained. Aizen nodded. This is the answer I've found over the years. Too hateful. I will absorb all the chakra I've used, I won't give it to them. Karen said angrily. Then she asked curiously, if we can absorb all the chakra we've used, won't we become a perpetual motion machine? Aizen shook his head slightly. Chakra becomes ninjutsu, ninjutsu becomes chakra, and ninjutsu becomes chakra. In fact, there is a key question. I don't know if you've thought about it, but chakra can be refined and used instantly. It can't be stored in the human body. Why would Otsutsuki spend so much effort to collect chakra? Karen's eyes lit up. I remember the woman I fought against at the world's first ninja tournament, Tsunade. She used a method to store chakra. If she can do it, then Otsutsuki must be able to do it too. Aizen nodded. To be precise, only people at the level of Kekkei Genkai can store chakra. Therefore, Otsutsuki isn't worried that the chakra seeds will give birth to a resistance against them. After all, the stronger the ninja, the faster they die. Karen froze for a moment. The stronger the ninja, the faster they die? Aizen nodded and sighed. The reason why most ninjas have short lives is because we need to consume physical and mental energy to refine chakra. Otsutsuki's lifespan is easily measured in thousands of years because they can use chakra to replenish their physical and mental energy. In a sense, the reason why Sasuke and Naruto in the parallel world were so weak in the future was because the six paths forcibly increased their strength and squeezed too much of their life energy. So that's how it is. Karen was in a trance. Only powerful ninjas can touch the truth, but the stronger they are, the closer they are to death. No one can cross this boundary unless they're a legend like Sensei or the leader of the alliance. Kakuzu suddenly understood. No wonder a powerful ninja like Hashirama died so early. It turns out that he fought too much with me and Madara. Sasori, who had been silent, couldn't help but ask. I still don't understand. Since Otsutsuki's purpose is to absorb chakra scattered in nature, why do they want to exterminate humans? A generation of chakra compared to 1,000 years of chakra, shouldn't it be insignificant? Aizen said faintly. They don't care about chakra, but what about the god tree? Otsutsuki takes the fruit of the god tree and we use it as nourishment. Chapter 621. God Tree. Several people exclaimed. Although they haven't seen the legendary god tree, they have heard from the Alliance that the god tree is the true body of the Jubi, the most terrifying and cruel existence in the world. Sasori nodded thoughtfully. Indeed, even an ordinary bijou is so cruel, the legendary Jubi shouldn't be willing to sacrifice itself. Aizen's eyes were indifferent. He learned a lot of things from the Ichibi and the Jubi, including the relationship between Otsutsuki and the god tree. He used to think that the god tree was just a pet and tool of Otsutsuki. But now it seems that this is not the case. Before the god tree blossoms and bears fruit, it needs to sacrifice Otsutsuki, and after the chakra fruit is taken, it needs all the life on the planet as nourishment. Kagaya violated this agreement and sacrificed Otsutsuki's broken body to the god tree, took the chakra fruit, and saved the people at that time. The Jubi went berserk because of this, but it was suppressed by Kagaya who ate the chakra fruit. It was because of this that Kaguya was worshipped by the people at that time as the goddess of Uno. This is the complete history. After all, with the strength of the Otsutsuki clan, even if Kaguya didn't eat the chakra fruit, it would be easy for her to calm the war on the planet. Therefore, the chaos she calmed at that time was actually caused by the Jubi. From this point, it can be seen that Otsutsuki and the God Tree are equal in status, a symbiotic relationship. After that, the Six Paths learned a lesson and creatively developed the Six Paths. Jubi Seal becoming the first Jinchuriki, turning the symbiotic relationship into an enslavement relationship. Of course, for people who don't have strong enough will, the enslavement relationship may be reversed. Thinking of this, Aizen thought in his heart, before counterattacking Otsutsuki, I must popularize the Six Paths, Jubi Seal among the higher-ups. If we encounter a combination of Otsutsuki and the Jubi, we can directly use the Jubi Seal to break their arms, and even turn Otsutsuki's power into our own. However, there aren't many people in the shinobi world who have the ability to suppress the Jubi's consciousness. Although he can't mass-produce Otsutsuki, he can mass-produce the Jubi's Jinchuriki. Kaguya, Ichikushi, two people in a team brought a divine tree, indicating that the divine tree is very common in the Otsutsuki clan. As long as there are enough Jinchuriki vessels, in the shinobi world, maybe they can obtain power comparable to the Otsutsuki clan by relying on this ability alone. Just as Aizen's thoughts were about the distant stars, a powerful aura erupted from his body. He shouted excitedly, Aizen-sama, I did it. Aizen smiled, hurry up and familiarize yourself with your power. The final battle is about to begin. In a dimensional space that resembled a wasteland, Three-Headed Eagle's face revealed a human-like look of shock. He screamed in horror, White Snake, you didn't tell us that the Shell organization is the weakest among the three major forces. The Wild Boar King said in an unfriendly tone, is this how you deceive your old friend? They thought that Otsutsuki, who saved them, was the leader of another organization. But he didn't expect that Otsutsuki Tonari was just a member of that organization. The Shell organization has Otsutsuki as its leader, and the Hollow has Otsutsuki as its subordinate. The gap between them suddenly widened. White Snake Sage said with a smile, I didn't lie to you. I was very kind when I told you that there was no Otsutsuki in the Shinobi Alliance, there was one in the Hollow, and there were two in the Shell organization. It was you who didn't listen to me and clamored to join the Shell organization. It doesn't make sense to blame me now, does it? Three-Headed Eagle and Wild Boar King felt bitter in their hearts. How could they know that there were monsters above Otsutsuki in those two forces? Moreover, their understanding of the world is still the same as before they were sealed. At that time, humans were just their slaves and food. They didn't think that the power of humans could reach such heights. White Snake Sage continued, besides, you used to feed on humans, do you really think that you can be accepted by humans? The bird and the pig didn't speak. After a moment of silence, Three-Headed Eagle asked in a sharp voice, why did you surrender? You should be like a toad and a slug, easier to be accepted by those humans, right? White Snake Sage didn't mention that he condoned his descendants to eat humans. He hummed and said, of course, it's because I believe in Otsutsuki. Although the two lords are slightly declining now, Otsutsuki's foundation is not comparable to those humans. The pig and the bird nodded subconsciously. They had such a mentality. That was a real Starry Sky Force. It was the greatest honor to be Otsutsuki's dog. Wasn't a domestic dog much more comfortable than a wild dog? At this moment, in the dimensional space, a shining and gorgeous beam of light shot straight into the sky. What is that? Why do I feel the aura of the two lords in that beam of light? Is it an illusion? Evil God, who had been silent, suddenly said, it's not an illusion. They have merged into one. The next moment, a tall figure suddenly appeared in front of them, giving them a fright. What appeared in their eyes was the Otsutsuki one peach from the left and the peach from the right. Just when the monsters were in doubt, Otsutsuki Itamo spoke. His indifferent tone was filled with incomparable confidence. Get ready for war, I'm going to destroy this planet. The monsters looked at each other and tacitly ignored the fact that only Otsutsuki was left and responded loudly, yes. At the same time, they couldn't help but praise themselves for their wit. They knew that Otsutsuki still had a backup plan, but they didn't expect it to be a fusion. Perceiving the powerful aura coming from Otsutsuki Itsumomo, the monsters were happy. This war was stable. If they had the ability, why not let Shimizu Garashi and Aizen Sosuke fuse together? 3 days later, in the central building of the Ninja Alliance, Garashi sensed his body with a strange expression, I didn't expect that the first Kekkei Genkai I developed would be this ability. Unlike Kekkei Genkai and Kekkei Genkai Elimination, Kekkei Genkai was all-encompassing. There was no so-called escape technique division, only the realm of carrying power. Genjutsu such as Infinite Tsukuyomi was a Kekkei Genkai net. Space abilities such as Heaven's Defense and Yomiuri could also be a Kekkei Genkai net. Auxiliary abilities such as Heavenly Tree World's Descent, Rabbit Hair Needle, 80 God's Air Attack, and Grey Bone Kill are also Kekkei Genkai net. Just when Garashi was thinking secretly, Rikudo suddenly flashed in and reported in a dignified tone, "Leader, the monsters of the Shell organization have led the undead army from the underworld to launch a general attack." Garashi knocked on the table. "I didn't expect that the first one who couldn't wait was Otsutsuki. Since they want to die, let's fulfill their wish." Chapter 622. In the endless field, normal humans, white Zetsu, and undead, the three armies lined up neatly, giving people a sense of majesty and solemnity. However, the mentality of the three armies is completely different. The ninjas on the Alliance side are passionate and generous. They firmly believe that their leader can lead them to victory. The white Zetsu of the Akatsuki organization are drifting with the tide without their own ideas. The undead of the Shell organization are slacking. If it weren't for the Pure Land, they would have already rebelled on the spot. On the one hand, these undead don't want to be pulled up to work and receive blessings after death. On the other hand, they don't want to fight for the enemy of the ninja world. Unfortunately, they have no choice. In the crowd, Hashirama was speechless. The last time we were resurrected by the Akatsuki, it was a civil war. This time, we were resurrected by the Shell organization. How did we become traitors to humanity? Was the Pure Lands reliable or not? Why do I feel that it is dedicated to training soldiers for the enemy? Looking at the monsters in front of the army, Tobarama nodded. I heard from those monsters that the Pure Land was snatched from the hands of the Six Paths Sennin. This Six Paths Sennin is really bad. Otsutsuki, Sage of the Six Paths. Hashirama's expression was complicated. I didn't expect that when I resurrected again, the world had already undergone earth-shaking changes. He naturally remembered how shocked he was when he heard the story of Otsutsuki from those monsters. Even the legendary Sage of the Six Paths is the descendant of Otsutsuki. However, what shocked him even more was the current situation of the ninja world. The human forces are not falling behind in front of the star races, and they are even steadily suppressing them. The Akatsuki organization has Otsutsuki as a subordinate, and the Ninja Alliance has incorporated the Sage of the Six Paths into their system. Thinking of this, Hashirama couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, there is a hero like Garashi in this era, otherwise humanity may be extinct. Hearing his elder brother mention the boy he saw when he was resurrected last time, Tobarama couldn't help but sigh. He was more rational than Hashirama, so he was more shocked when he accepted this fact. He used to think that if his elder brother didn't die too early, his achievements would definitely not be lower than that boy. But now, fuck his elder brother, the leader is invincible. Tobarama said in a deep voice. Although we are now helpless, Garashi will definitely stop us. They were not the only ones. There were whispers everywhere in the dead crowd. The Raikage sighed with melancholy. I didn't expect that kid to have such achievements. AI is better at reading people than I am. The Mizukage raised his chin high. Do you know how I died? I was killed by Shimizu Garashi and a dozen wood-leaf ninjas. Not only the people of this era were resurrected, but also the ninjas from the Warring States period, and even the ninjas from 1,000 years ago to the Shinobi era. These people were shocked by the development of the future, and when they heard the third Mizukage self-narration, they were shocked. I didn't expect there to be such a big shot among the undead. My apologies. Although the morale of the army was unstable, to the extent that they were completely leaning towards the other side, One Peach did not mind and did not stop them from discussing. If it was said that he'd thought highly of the undead army in the past, then he didn't really care about them now. They were just consumables. One Peach calmly walked out of the camp and flew to the middle area of the three sides. Shimizu Garashi Aizen Sosuke, come out. Hearing his words, the people on the Alliance's side were all stunned. Soon after, they laughed out loud with evil intentions. Is this idiot looking for death? He's not the opponent of either of them who gave him the courage to stand out. However, some sharp-eyed people noticed something was wrong. Why is there only one Otsutsuki? Why does it feel like the left and right sides of this guy's face were pieced together by two people? A figure flew out from each side. Looking at the enemy, Aizen chuckled softly. I thought you would devour the other side. Did you fuse together? According to the last information Kimimaro sent before he fell asleep, Peach attacked Otsutsuki, who was in the middle of the reincarnation ritual, but Otsutsuki was already prepared for it, so neither of them had any advantage. Otsutsuki didn't dare to release Peach, fearing that he would continue to destroy the ritual. Peach didn't dare to release Otsutsuki, fearing that Otsutsuki would come after him after he regained his strength. Both sides were in a difficult position, so they chose to temporarily fuse together. Itao didn't know that her background had been completely exposed. She was still indifferently saying, "You can still laugh at this moment. I'm rather impressed by your mental fortitude." Shushi crossed his arms. You didn't call us out just to chat with us, did you? Nothing else, I just don't want to do what you want. One Peach smiled contemptuously. I won't give you the chance to create a planet's consciousness, and there's no need to continue the war because I will kill you here. Kill us? Aizen looked at Garashi with interest. Shimizu Garashi, what do you think? Garashi smiled calmly. Since someone can't see the situation clearly, we'll help him see it clearly. For them, the current situation was far from troublesome. Otsutsuki had only fused together in a special way. It didn't mean that one side had swallowed the other. If it was Otsutsuki's self-sacrifice, then it would be troublesome. To be precise, Otsutsuki's self-sacrifice was to fully unleash one's potential. Fusion was just a simple superposition and there were certain restrictions. In the last ninja tournament, his and Aizen's combat power was 10,000, Otsutsuki's combat power was 9,500, and Otsutsuki's combat power was 7,000. Otsutsuki's combat power could reach 30,000 after devouring Otsutsuki. Because combat power wasn't equal to potential, eating Otsutsuki in the form of a chakra fruit could fully unleash Otsutsuki's potential. As for now, because of the restrictions, their combined combat power couldn't be compared to their natural combination. At most, they had 15,000 combat power. Of course, even so, it was already very powerful. Combat wasn't as simple as adding and subtracting combat power. Under normal circumstances, one 15,000 combat power was far more powerful than two 10,000 combat power. But the problem was that he and Aizen were no longer the same as they were a few days ago. People's blessings and fear of Aizen had allowed him to advance by leaps and bounds in the Shinigami system. He was constantly converting the power of the Hogyoku into his own strength. Also, stepping into the realm of Kekkei Genkai had allowed his strength to increase rapidly. Compared to a few days ago, his strength had increased by at least 30%. Help me understand the situation? Do you have the strength to do so? Otsutsuki, whose way of thinking was still a few days ago, laughed and attacked the two at the same time. A pair of large hands covered the sky as if they were grabbing the stars and the moon. No, this guy's strength has increased a lot. He's not Otsutsuki or Otsutsuki at all. He's a fusion of the two. Oh no, the leader is in danger. Just as everyone was shocked, they saw Otsutsuki fall to the ground like a meteor. The originally empty field was instantly smashed into a huge crater. Otsutsuki lay in the crater, doubting his life. Did he accidentally travel to the future? In just a few days, how did those two monsters become stronger? Was there any justice in this world? Chapter 623. At their level, the improvement of their strength was almost in the hundreds of years. Although Otsutsuki was mostly lazy, it was still outrageous for him to improve his strength so much in just a few days. One Peach felt like he was being targeted. Nothing good had happened to him since he came to this planet. After a moment of anger, he calmed down. Although the two's growth was faster than he expected, it wasn't a big problem. He could feel that the two monsters weren't as strong as him. He was sent flying because he was too confident. He attacked both of them at the same time and was caught off guard. As long as he focused his firepower and killed one of them, victory would still be his. I'm bullying the weak. I have the advantage. One Peach regained his confidence and flew out of the pit. Don't think. Before he could even finish his sentence, Rinsei and Aizen appeared on his left and right sides in a flash. One swung his fist while the other swung his sword. Again. One Peach was furious. He ignored Aizen and swung his right leg at Shushi like an axe. Spiral meteor burst. Garashi clenched his fist and crushed the spiral meteor core hidden in his palm. Suddenly, the energy of the four major systems rushed out from his fingers and formed a storm around his fist. It was going to destroy the world. This bastard tricked me. One Peach's eyes widened. He thought Aizen was going to compete with him in terms of physical strength. Too insidious. He didn't care about martial ethics. Boom. Under Garashi's tyrannical punch, the originally calm space shattered like a mirror. Black cracks crawled across the space. The turbulence from the void almost tore One Piece's body apart. Space solidification. Tao gritted his teeth and suppressed the spatial turbulence, but before he could relax, he heard a piercing sound and a black long sword pierced through his chest. One Piece spat out a mouthful of blood. He turned around and saw Aizen nailing him to the void with a long sword. Gem? Why is it the truth-seeking jade? Peach was confused. Aizen's weapon was just an ordinary sword, and he didn't have that kind of power last time. Without waiting for him to come back to his senses, Garashi rushed forward again, clasped his hands together, and smashed his head like a heavy hammer. Itao was sent flying and almost fell out of the combined state. Damned bastard, don't think that you can beat me with a sneak attack. One Piece roared angrily. Ignoring his bleeding body, he forcefully activated Shinra Tensei. An incomparably powerful repulsive force erupted from his body. Under the superposition of the Golden Rinnegan, the repulsive force almost turned into a storm, and even Garashi and Aizen were sent flying. While the two were separated, One Piece quickly activated Yomi no Bai and appeared in front of Aizen. She accelerated and shot the shrunken moon towards Aizen. After the moon came out of the eye technique space, it quickly returned to its original size, but its speed did not slow down at all. After being hit by the moon, Aizen's body exploded and turned into dust. But in the next moment, a brand new Aizen walked out of the illusion. One Piece's face was very ugly. He was completely suppressed by Aizen last time. He didn't know that Aizen had such a trick up his sleeve. It's fine that this guy can revive, but I can't feel any weakness from him. After the moon collided with Aizen, it didn't slow down at all as it continued to crash towards the ground. Although the moon in this world wasn't as big as the moon in Garashi's previous world, when such a star appeared in the sky, the impact was immeasurable. Tides rose in the sea and mountains collapsed. The most important thing was that the moon was gradually being torn apart by the gravity of the earth. If this continued, both the moon and the earth would be destroyed and Kaguya, who was sealed in the moon, would escape. What a mess. Garashi's face was calm and there was no trace of panic on his face. Just right, let's use the moon as the final battlefield. After merging with the three holy lands, the dream world 2.0 instantly covered the moon. The moment the moon hit the earth, the moon turned into a secret space similar to the three holy lands. This series of unforeseen events happened in the blink of an eye. Without the ability to think beyond time, there was simply no time to react. What the hell just happened? Did something happen just now? Only a group of Kage-level ninjas could barely see the battle. Using the moon as a weapon, if I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have imagined it. Tobirama was shocked. Hashirama, can you do it? Of course I can't. Hashirama said subconsciously, and then he reacted. Byaji, why are you here? Bastard, you want me to come and find you. Tobirama cursed. Why did Otsutsuki summon us? With our strength, we can't participate in such a battle. These two fellows actually. Itao frowned. He suddenly noticed that the two of them were looking at him, and his heart skipped a beat. He wanted to use the same trick again, using Shinra Tensei to separate the two of them. However, the same trick was useless against a ninja. Shushi immediately activated Time Freeze. With the combined power of the two of them, they began to beat up One Piece. The duration of Time Freeze was very short. In just a short moment, One Piece quickly regained control of her body. Feeling the pain, One Piece roared. Damn it, don't think you're the only ones who can use Time Freeze. One Piece punched Aizen, kicked Garashi, and at the last moment of Time Freeze, he grabbed Shimizu Garashi's legs and tore him in half. After Time Freeze resumed, One Piece, who was splashed with blood, laughed loudly. Who else? A shrill scream snapped him out of his excitement. One Piece lowered his head and saw that he had torn a white snake in half. How is this possible? One Piece's eyes widened. He naturally wouldn't apologize to a native, so he threw the white snake aside in disgust. After thinking for a while, One Piece quickly understood. He looked at Aizen angrily. You used genjutsu to affect my vision before Time Freeze? Not too stupid. Aizen clapped his hands and looked to the side. Garashi, get ready to beat him. Garashi said concisely. Beat him. Under the tacit cooperation of their Time Freeze illusion, In just a few seconds, One Peach was beaten to the point of doubting life. Based on his shallow combat knowledge, he should be the one with the upper hand. He wasn't strong enough to crush them, but the other side shouldn't have any cooperation experience. But these two had never cooperated before, so how could they have such tacit understanding? Could this be the so-called battle awareness of the strong? Chapter 624. Seeing Otsutsuki being beaten in public, everyone's tight heartstrings finally relaxed. I thought they would be more powerful after fusing. So that's it? He's already very powerful, but he doesn't know his limits. He challenged someone he shouldn't have. Hearing this, many people nodded in agreement. The enemy's strength was already very abnormal. Not only did he capture the moon, but he also treated the moon as a plaything. If it was another opponent, he would have won. Unfortunately, he met the most outstanding person since the birth of this planet. In stark contrast to that, the monsters' hearts were cold. What happened to being in control? Why couldn't they defeat him even after fusing? Isn't this too bad? The monsters wailed in their hearts. If they were as strong as Otsutsuki, they wouldn't be in this situation. What's the situation on this planet? Momoshiki and Ichiki's souls roared. Although they tried to overestimate each other, the reality was often crueler than expected. They couldn't defeat him even after fusing. Just as he was about to despair, Aizen suddenly stopped fighting. Now you should understand the situation, right? Momoshiki froze for a moment, then his eyes widened in disbelief. You want to let me go? Aizen shook his finger gently. Not let you go, but let you participate in the war as a third party. After all, you still have some value. Garashi pretended to look at him. In order to fight with me, you really put in a lot of effort. Aizen laughed softly. If there's anyone in this world who can make me feel pressure, it's you. Momoshiki felt a burst of relief, then a thick sense of humiliation surged in his heart. These inferior creatures didn't even put him in their eyes, they only used him as a catalyst to stimulate their opponents. This was simply the greatest humiliation of all. However, he didn't refuse or curse. Instead, he hid the humiliation in his heart and cursed. You two wait for me, I will let you know the consequences of underestimating Otsutsuki. You really think highly of me. Garashi said with a smile, then looked at Momoshiki. Hand over control of the Pure Land. I want to integrate it into the final battlefield. One Peach's face darkened as he handed over control. He warned himself in his heart, endure. After incorporating the Pure Land into the moon, the connection between the mystic lunar realm and Earth star became even closer, as if they were two sides of the same coin. Then, 3 giant doors appeared in front of the armies of the 3 forces. Garashi said in a deep voice, in order to prevent the war from harming Earth, let's have the final battle on the moon. Aizen thought to himself, fight to your heart's content. The moment the concentration of chakra in this sealed environment reaches its limit is the moment I complete my transformation. In the case of free-range breeding, the amount of chakra released into the natural world in 10 years of peace was less than that of a single war. The scale and intensity of this war would far exceed that of the past. The amount of chakra that would be released might even exceed the amount accumulated over hundreds or even thousands of years. Furthermore, the moon was smaller than Earth and it was a sealed space. The concentration of chakra would definitely reach a limit. While he was thinking about the transformation, the crowd below was also boiling with excitement. Is the war finally about to begin? It's all Otsutsuki's fault. I was about to ignite, but he suddenly intervened and now I have to find the feeling again. In the crowd, Mizuki's heart was in turmoil. He was a fanatical believer that Garashi could bring light, and Garashi did better than he imagined. The current situation was something he didn't even dare to imagine in his wildest dreams. Sure enough, it is the greatest folly to speculate about the power of God with the thinking of mortals. I just have to follow orders. Hiruzen took a puff from his pipe, and his thoughts drifted back to more than 20 years ago. I knew that Garashi was extraordinary back then and he deserved to be called me. Looking at Garashi in the sky like a god, Asma had a strange expression. So, the most glorious moment of my life was the battle when I was 5 years old? Hearing his muttering, Shionyin, who was beside him, strongly agreed. We used to be able to fight back and forth with Sashi. Madara crossed his arms and looked at Hashirama, who was in the opposite camp, and whispered, this time I really want to fight to the other side. Just as the 3 sides entered the final battlefield outside the Earth, a tall figure fell out of the distorted space and time vortex. Pale skin, long horns on the head, and a golden vertical eye inlaid in the middle of the eyebrows, it was Otsutsuki's people. I came back? Looking around, Otsutsuki Ryushi was so excited that he trembled. After calming down, he looked at the planet below with half fear and half hatred. This is the planet where the Emperor of the Universe, Shimizu Garashi, rose? The ultimate demon king who forced Otsutsuki into a desperate situation. Thinking of Otsutsuki, who used to run rampant in the starry sky, Ryushi couldn't wait to skin the culprit. Although my strength should be above the current Shimizu Garashi, I must not be careless. Ryushi forced himself to calm down and said to himself in a trembling voice, after all, that guy is a monster called the Void Lord, the Emperor of the Universe. From an enslaved and grazed planet, in just a few hundred years, he destroyed Otsutsuki's foundation of more than 100,000 years. It is not an exaggeration to describe such a character as a myth or a legend. If it weren't for the help of space travel, he wouldn't even be qualified to stand in front of him. Have we entered the final stage of the battle? Ryushi frowned. Unfortunately, I don't know the details of this battle, otherwise I wouldn't have to be so cautious. In short, find a way to sneak in first. After entering the secret space, a huge square appeared in front of everyone. In the middle of the square, a spring with a pale golden light was flowing quietly. There was a strong fragrance all around as if it was the breath of spring. Just by being close to the spring, everyone could feel a strong vitality surging in their body. What is this? I feel 100 times more energetic, and the hidden injuries in my body are healed. Garashi walked in behind everyone. This is the spring of life extracted from the Grail vein provided by Aizen. If you are injured or physically weak in the battle, you can temporarily return to the spring to rest for a period of time. Refining chakra was very physically exhausting. In order to continuously refine chakra for all three sides, he didn't mind sacrificing the entire vein. Hearing Garashi's explanation, everyone became excited. This way we can fight without any worries. I can also experience the pleasure of unlimited chakra. Some people also noticed, the vein provided by Aizen? Then the other two sides. Garashi nodded slightly. All three sides have the spring of life. The sign of one side's defeat is when the spring is taken by the enemy. Chapter 625. Hearing Garashi's explanation, everyone was curious about this novel way of war, but it wasn't difficult to understand. With the spring water, there was an infinite chance to repeat. If the spring water was occupied, it naturally meant that the war was lost. But some people still didn't understand, why are there three roads? Garashi naturally wouldn't say that this was his bad taste and calmly explained, the three bases are distributed in a triangle with the three holy lands as a template. Each has two roads leading to the other two sides, and the middle road is leading to the melee area. Listening to Garashi's explanation, everyone quickly understood that the middle road would most likely be the most intense area of the battle. Naruto shouted excitedly, I want to go to the middle road. Sasuke raised his eyebrows, the water in the middle road is very deep. I'm afraid you can't grasp it. Let me do it. Niji said in a deep voice, the middle road is a melee area, and we need to grasp the situation of the battlefield at all times. In this regard, my Byakugan is naturally the most suitable. Garashi smiled as he watched them fight. In addition to creating an environment for transformation, this war also had the intention of training soldiers. After all, he couldn't rely on himself to counterattack Otsutsuki. Someone had to help him clear the way. Therefore, he didn't intend to immediately counterattack Otsutsuki after this transformation, but planned to take it slowly. On the one hand, he didn't like to fight battles that he wasn't sure of. He would only take action after thoroughly figuring out Otsutsuki's details. On the other hand, he also needed some time to let his forces catch up with his pace a little. Not all of them were Otsutsuki, but at least let the current Kage-level combat power reach the level of Otsutsuki's low-level fighters. Just as Shushi's imagination was running wild, his expression changed slightly. Someone invaded this space, who is it? Perfect. After sneaking into the battlefield, Dragon sure praised himself in his heart. Those earthlings were busy with the war, and it was impossible for anyone to know of his existence. But even so, he didn't have the slightest carelessness. There weren't many Otsutsuki who were as cautious and unpretentious as him. After entering the battlefield, Dragon sure thought seriously, no one in later generations knows the history of this blank world war. All the people who participated in this war have their memories erased. We can only infer from the results that Clearwater Demon won the final victory. Thinking of this, he shook his head slightly. From the perspective of the later generations, Clearwater Demon's victory was nothing out of the ordinary. That was a top figure in the entire universe. How could there be someone who could rival him on the planet level? Judging from the historical data, it seems that there are many Otsutsuki involved in this war, but they are basically traitors and wastes. Thinking of this, Long Shi shook his head with emotion. He used to wonder what was wrong with Otsutsuki's race. All of them did not think about making progress and only knew how to plant trees. Even in his era, there were only a few elites who had awakened like him. It was only later that he realized that there must be something wrong with the system. Unfortunately, it was already too late to reverse the situation. After sighing with emotion, Long Shi's thoughts returned to reality. No matter what, trash is still better than traitors. I'll go and get information from them first. In the headquarters of the Shell organization, Itao's expression was very ugly. He could naturally sense the powerful vitality contained within the spring water. Not only that, he could also sense the soul energy within the spring water. Obviously, the enemy had considered that most of his army was made up of souls, so they had kindly added the soul energy of the Pure Land into the spring water. But the more considerate the other party was, the more ashamed he was. Those two bastards not only did not put him in their eyes, they were simply coaxing a child to play a game. It was a great shame. Thinking of this, he punched the ground as if to vent his anger. Boom. Cracks appeared on the ground, spreading rapidly in all directions like a spider web. A strange expression appeared on Itao's face. Although it was just a punch to vent his anger, logically speaking, it should have caused the ground within a radius of more than 10 kilometers to collapse. However, his punch had only caused cracks to appear on the ground. After a little perception, Itao became more and more surprised. The lunar space has been strengthened. Not only that, it is also absorbing my chakra. Under normal circumstances, he could absorb chakra from nature. Chakra was almost infinite. Most of the chakra that was used could also be recycled. But now, he could not absorb any chakra from this space. In other words, if the chakra in his body was used up, he might have to use his physical and spiritual energy to refine chakra like those inferior creatures. Itao suddenly understood and gritted his teeth. No wonder those two bastards did not intend to seal me. They were waiting for me to offer up chakra. At this moment, he even had the urge to commit suicide on the spot. Even if he became a wedge state, it was better than being eaten by those two bastards. But he soon hesitated. If his strength was weaker than those two bastards, then so be it, but he was obviously the strongest one. As long as he grasped the opportunity, there was a possibility of a comeback. In this case, suicide was too cowardly. The mentality of gambling made him reconsider the possibility of winning. What should I do? At this moment, a voice transmission came into his ears. Itao's pupils suddenly contracted. Other than me and those traitors, there is still Otsutsuki on this planet? After the shock, Itao seriously thought. He asked me to meet in private to avoid my subordinates. This means that his existence is not known by others. Could it be the reinforcements sent by the main family? Until the voice in his mind urged him again, he handed over the command of the battle to the few monsters, then hid in the bushes near the base. The next moment, Long Shi appeared in front of him and said directly, "Let me introduce myself. My name is Otsutsuki Long Shi. Like you, I am also a superior warrior of the main family." Superior warrior? Itao's voice came out of Itao's mouth. There are only 33 superior warriors in the main family. How come I have never seen you before? Long Shi did not want to tell them that he came from the future because he did not believe in the ability of the two trash recorded in the clan's records. He casually lied, "I am a secret troop directly under the clan leader. It is not surprising that you do not know. However, I believe that you should be able to sense the level of my bloodline. The nobility of bloodline cannot be disguised." Hearing this, Itao's vigilance in his heart relaxed a lot. Indeed, the nobility of bloodline cannot be disguised. Just like Kagaya's family, although they obtained great strength through the mutation of their bloodline and the strange system, the lowliness of their bloodline could not be concealed. Although they could not beat Kagaya's family, this did not prevent them from despising Kagaya's bloodline. Chapter 626. Although she already believed in the other party's identity, Itamo still asked cautiously, "Why are you here?" As Otsutsuki, who came from the difficult era of the future, casually making up nonsense was a basic operation. Dragon sure replied without changing his expression. The Patriarch had a premonition that this star field may give birth to a power that could threaten Otsutsuki, so he sent me to solve the hidden danger. It turned out that the Patriarch's vision had noticed this place. Itamo said respectfully. Even if Otsutsuki was a monster, their Patriarch was still regarded as a god. Seeing that the two believed him without any doubt, Dragon sure once again sighed in his heart. In the future, the Patriarch who was comparable to a god was defeated by the Great Demon King, and this battle established the Great Demon King's prestige. If it wasn't for the lack of time, the best way would be to go back and ask for help. Sigh, if only the time of transmigration could be earlier. Gathering his thoughts, Dragon sure said indifferently, "Tell me the current situation of this planet." Itamo didn't doubt him and explained seriously, "Although there are many traders of Otsutsuki on this planet, the real threat is the two natives, Shimizu Garashi and Aizen Sosuke." Hearing this, Dragon sure asked in disbelief, "What did you say? How could there be someone as strong as Qingshueda, as strong as Qingshui Shushi? Although the current Shimizu Demon King is not complete, there should be no one as strong as him among the natives." This time Itamo was puzzled. "You know him? Also, although his strength is good, it shouldn't surprise you so much, right?" Dragon sure couldn't explain Shimizu Demon King's future achievements to him, so he casually said, "Because the Patriarch specifically mentioned Shimizu Garashi in the prophecy, saying that he is a terrible monster." Even the Lord Patriarch mentioned him? Dragon sure calmed down and asked, "Are you sure? Is Aizen really as strong as Shimizu Garashi?" Itamo nodded, "I'm sure." Dragon sure rubbed his chin. "Is it possible to win him over?" Hearing his muttering, Itao shook her head. "On the surface the cooperation is still okay, but he is an earthling after all. It's impossible for him to walk together with us." Ryushi didn't explain anything to him. Aizen didn't exist in the future. In other words, he was killed by Clearwater Demon in this war. If he revealed this future to Aizen, he might be able to convince him to join them under the fear of death. Just as Longshire was hesitating, One Peach suddenly asked, "Longshire, how is your strength?" Longshire temporarily put aside his doubts and confidently smiled, "I should be just a little bit higher than you." One Peach perked up. "Are you serious?" Longshire said indifferently, "I have presided over 2 divine tree ceremonies." With this, the peach form no longer had any doubts. The first form had hosted the divine tree ritual once, and it was in an incomplete state. The peach form had only eaten 2/3 of the gold form, which was not even comparable to the first form. Under such circumstances, even if the effects of the sacrificial tree of the divine tree varied, the other party's strength was definitely above their combined strength. One Peach said, "Then what's the point of thinking so much? Let's just go and crush them together." Longshire couldn't help but be surprised. "Is it really that simple?" "It's that simple." One Peach said confidently, "The 2 of them aren't as strong as me. They're only slightly stronger than me when they work together. As long as you join us, they won't be our match." Dragon sure was restless from his words. Cutting the Gordian knot with a swift knife might not be a bad choice. But he still suppressed his impulse and asked, "Do you have any trustworthy subordinates?" One Peach's tone was unhappy. "You don't trust me?" Longshire comforted, "It's not that I don't trust you, but I need to analyze the problem from the perspective of a lower life form. After all, we're too strong and tend to overlook some details." One Peach reluctantly accepted this explanation and muttered, "I have a trustworthy subordinate, the White Snake." Longshire was surprised. "Are you sure? It doesn't seem to be in a good state?" One Peach waved his hand, "We can't be too polite to those lowly life forms. The more we show our might, the more they'll be tamed." Longshire didn't mind. "Since you said so, I'll listen to you." Soon, the White Snake Sage was summoned with a confused expression. After learning of Longshire's existence, the White Snake Sage was overjoyed. "That's great. With Longshire-sama joining us, how can we not succeed?" Longshire nodded slightly and told him about One Peach's idea. He asked, "Do you think this is feasible?" The White Snake Sage looked troubled and carefully glanced at One Peach. Finally, he braced himself and said, "I don't think this is a good idea." One Peach's eyes widened and he was about to speak, but he was stopped by Longshire. After saying, "Don't be hasty," Longshire looked at the White Snake Sage. "Continue." The White Snake Sage deliberated over his words. My lords, you may not know this, but those humans are the most sinister and cunning. They like to keep their trump cards, and Shimizu Garashi and Aizen Sosuke are the best among them. No one knows how many trump cards they've hidden. One Peach Sama has never forced them into a desperate situation. In other words, what you see is only what the enemy wants you to see. In this case it's too risky to act rashly. One Peach slowly nodded, recalling the time when he sneaked an attack on Shimizu Garashi and was almost killed. Now that you mention it, it seems to be true. That man had the strength to fight with him back then, but what was the result? Before his sneak attack, he had never revealed his true strength and he had almost killed him. It was too sinister. Seeing that One Peach was so easily convinced, Longshire's eyes twitched, and he was furious. How could he have almost believed the words of this trash? Otsutsuki had used countless blood and tears to prove that the great Demon King was an old B***starred. He seemed to be at the end of his rope, but in fact he had hidden many trump cards. And this guy in front of him had never forced the other party into a desperate situation, nor had he forced the other party to use one of his trump cards. Yet he dared to talk nonsense here. He had thought that this guy really had a lot of confidence. Seeing that the atmosphere had become gloomy, the White Snake Sage tried to express his opinion. Actually, if we want to test the trump cards of those two people, we just need to let nature take its course. Longshire asked. Let nature take its course? The White Snake Sage nodded. They are not only partners but also competitors. As long as they go step by step, they will eventually be on opposite sides and reveal all their trump cards in the final battle. What you need to do, Lord Longshire, is to give them a fatal blow at the last moment. Chapter 627. Ryushi frowned and subconsciously wanted to refuse. As a person who came from the future, after discussing for a long time, he finally came to the conclusion that he didn't need to do anything. Wouldn't this make him seem incompetent? But after thinking about it again and again, he had to admit that letting nature take its course was indeed the best choice. Ryushi coughed twice. Then you can go fight without worry, I will support you from behind. Snake Sage said excitedly, with Ryushi-sama, this war will be won. Ikimomo waved her hand, there's nothing for you to do here, you can leave. Yes. Snake Sage respectfully retreated. He vaguely heard Ikimomo talking about the chakra fruit. Snake Sage still maintained a respectful expression, but in her heart she despised them. The war has just begun and they are already thinking about how to divide the fruits of victory, how short-sighted. With the intelligence of these aliens, how can they win against Aizen-sama? Recalling the scene 12 years ago when Aizen-sama contacted her through Orochimaru, Snake Sage couldn't help but sigh. Aizen-sama is the one who can achieve great things. In her opinion, Aizen-sama must have planted Orochimaru as a spy in the Ninja Alliance, so he knows the internal affairs of the Alliance like the back of his hand. As for the Shell organization, as far as she knew, she was already the second batch of people to be inserted into the organization. Powerful and shrewd, such a person is naturally more qualified than Shimizu Garashi and Otsutsuki to be the master of this world. Thinking of this, Snake Sage quietly quickened her pace. I have to quickly pass this information to Aizen-sama. While the undercurrent in the shadows was quietly surging on the surface, the Fifth Ninja World War was in full swing. In the central area. Fire. Under Raiga's command, 1,000 pacifists fired dust release at the Alliance. Thousands of light beams bloomed with great power, leaving long and narrow gullies on the ground of the moon. Such an attack was obviously not something an ordinary ninja could resist, but they didn't want to resist it. The ninjas of the Alliance scattered as much as possible and broke through the gaps of the dust release. As long as they could get close to the mechs, the threat of the dust release would be reduced a lot. Not only that, but many of the strong ones also spontaneously rushed towards the mechas after entering the battlefield. With the spring of life healing his injuries and stamina, the excessively powerful dust release became the greatest threat on the battlefield. However, the people of Hollow would not just watch the enemy attack. The modified White Zetsu army built the strongest line of defense in front of the pacifists. Powerful ninjutsu that were hard to come by were extremely cheap in this place. From time to time, there would be roaring sounds of explosions. In an instant, both sides were shrouded in intense firepower. And such an intense exchange of firepower was just a side of the huge battlefield. Battles were taking place everywhere one could see. Amidst this hail of bullets, a man with a shamade hairstyle stood proudly. Hashirama, come and fight me. Hashirama appeared. I'm coming. Seeing Madara, Hashirama sighed. I didn't expect that you would fight for everyone. Madara snorted. Shimizu Garashi did achieve peace. In that case, it's not impossible to listen to his instructions once. Madara, you, don't talk nonsense, let's fight. Perhaps knowing that this might be the last battle, Madara broke out with all his strength as soon as he came up. He directly transformed into the complete body Susanoo and waved his Odachi at Hashirama. The repulsive force of Shinra Tensei was attached to the blade, shaking the air as if even the space was trembling. Come on. Hashirama also put aside his distractions and fought with all his strength. A huge mountain-like Buddha statue rose from the ground, and thousands of arms behind it quickly shot out. Boom. The Odachi and the Buddha statue's arms collided at a very fast speed. In just 1 second they collided hundreds of times. A shockwave comparable to a Category 12 hurricane radiated into the surroundings. The wooden shards that were caught in the shockwave accelerated like bullets. Even though the ground had been strengthened, countless holes were formed by the wooden shards. Needless to say, the people who were fighting around were blown out without any preparation. Madara and Hashirama naturally did not care about the situation of others in the fierce battle. Madara opened his mouth while waving his Odachi. Yasaka no Magatama. Countless light spots shot out of Susanoo's mouth and fell on the Buddha statue, breaking it into pieces. However, on the remains of the broken Buddha statue, a wooden dragon quickly grew out and tightly entangled Susanoo. Hashirama, don't think that the same trick can defeat me twice. Madara naturally knew that Hashirama's wooden dragon could absorb chakra, so he did not dare to neglect it and quickly broke out the maximum level of Shinra Tensei. The powerful repulsive force broke out from Madara's body, and instantly destroyed the huge wooden dragon that entangled him, and even Hashirama was bounced out. Around him, it was as if the entire area had been cleared. Even though they had retreated 10 kilometers away, they were still unable to avoid the explosion. Is this the strength of Big Brother? It's so strong. On the edge of the battlefield, Izuna looked at the two people fighting and was shocked. No, this is actually just part of his strength. Tobirama said in a deep voice. He naturally remembered how powerful Madara was when he used Chakra Tensei in the 4th Ninja World War 8 years ago. That's the real face of Rinnegan. For the guy who killed him, Izuna naturally didn't have a good face. But he couldn't help but be curious and asked, how strong is Big Brother's real strength? However, after Tobirama finished teasing him, he didn't care anymore and looked at the sky. Those two teenagers have surpassed Big Brother and Madara, but the other teenager can suppress their joint forces. Should I say that he's worthy of being Otsutsuki? In the sky, Naruto's whole body was shining with golden flames, Sasuke's complete Susanoo, and Tonari's Tensigen mode. The battle between the three almost changed the color of the world. Damn, this guy's strength has become much stronger than during the convention. Naruto said to Sasuke while throwing Futon Raisin Shuriken. The extra part of his power seems to be similar to the power given to us by Six Paths Sennin. Sasuke murmured. Their conversation naturally couldn't be hidden from Tonari. After a silver wheel reincarnation explosion blew the two away, Tonari chuckled softly. You can enter this field because of Six Paths Sennin, right? Unfortunately, my ancestor is Six Paths Sennin's younger brother, Otsutsuki Himura. Let's test it out and see who is the true ruler of this world. At this time, Niji entered the Hashiman Tanku mode, opened 7 gates in a row and rushed toward Tonari. Naruto, Sasuke, I'm here to help you. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.